I got a lot
Said it
done
was over 80
too.
degrees
My
this
whole
afternoon.
backyard,
I'm worried
the
about
broken
these
branches
farmers.
are all
Global
picked
warming?
It's
up.
going to be ugly.
Well, if it starts budding,
The neighbors
and
were
then
cheering.
it's
Now I
going
gotta
to
do the
freeze,
front yard.
Freeze, we're dead.
you're done.
Yeah.
They don't have a crop.
I call Bob Cole. Two
big trees falling this big.
April 2nd or something.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the March 14th, 2012 meeting of the Resource Management and Administration Committee of Grand Traverse County, which is a committee of the whole. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The clerk would call the roll, please.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Thomas.
Here.
Max Bauer,
Here,
Lemkool,
Here.
Inman,
Here.
Henschel,
Yes.
Gilman,
Hello.
Fleece,
Present.
Chairman Richardson.
Here. Okay, our first item would be the approval of minutes from February 8th, 2012.
So moved for
regular session.
approval as presented.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion by Inman, support by Wheelock. Any discussion? All in favor?
aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And we have the closed session minutes of February 8th.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the closed session minutes as distributed.
Second.
Support.
Okay, I have a motion by Wheelock and support by Henschel. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this brings us to our first opportunity for public comment, and before the clerk reads the rules, I would say that as we go through the agenda, if there is a specific item that anyone wishes to comment on, I will take public comment on those items when we discuss them. So you may either provide public comment at the start of the meeting or during the discussion of that item, and we also have another public comment at the very end of the meeting. So, would you like to read the rules?
Any person shall be permitted to address the meeting of the Board of Commissioners, which is required to be open to the public under the provision of the Michigan Open Meetings Act as amended. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. 1. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. 2. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. Chairperson may, at his or her discretion, extend the amount of time any person is allowed to speak.
Okay, anyone wishing to make public comment, just step up to the table here and identify yourself.
Is this the right time to talk about the soil erosion issue? Or?
You can if you want to, or I will also take public comment when we get to that item on the agenda. Okay. Okay, so seeing none, we'll close public comment, and that brings us to the approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Fleece.
I've got an item I'd like to add to the agenda,
Okay.
and it's regarding the Spirit of Traverse City train, and I'd like to put it under number 10, C, unfinished business.
Okay, and you said there were some folks here who want to make a
Yes,
presentation?
I have a couple members from the Old Engine Show here that'd like to make a presentation to the board tonight regarding the train.
Okay. Commissioner Inman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add, I've been getting a number of remarks regarding the possibility of opening up the drop-off station for brush and those kinds of things, given the storm, to send over to the Resource Recovery Department. So I'm wondering if we could just add that to the agenda under New Business A.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion for?
Or do you want to put it under Resource Recovery number 2?
No, it should be.
No,
on new
it'll be a
business.
separate
right.
thing.
New Business A, okay.
Yeah, new business thing. Someone like to make a motion on the agenda?
I'll move that the agenda be approved with the addition of the Commissioner Fleece's item of the train and the addition of the drop-off station under new business.
Support. I have a motion by Inman, support by Henschel. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Bott, no special orders of business tonight?
No.
And that brings us to the consent calendar.
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval is approved by a single committee action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive and file. Resource Recovery Manager's Report. 2, Conservation District Staff Report for February. 3, Road Commission Monthly Report. B, approval. 1, extension of household hazardous waste collection contract. And 2, resolution proclaiming the week of April 8th through the 14th, 2012 as National Public Safety Telecommunicator Week in Grand Traverse County.
Is there any member of the public who would like any item on the consent calendar removed for further discussion? Okay, seeing none, is there any member of the commission who wants to remove any item from the consent calendar? Commissioner Inman, please, I'm sorry.
I'd like to make a motion to do the consent calendar as presented.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Okay, first of all, I have a motion.
I'll support the motion.
And so, a motion by Fleece and support by Wheelock. Go ahead.
Okay. I sent out to each of you the Conservation District's newsletter. If you're not already signed up to get that, I would encourage everybody to do it. I'd also encourage anybody, any of your township officials, if they're not signed up to get that. It's a great newsletter that talks about what's going on with the Conservation District, and I encourage you to do it. If you would want me to continue to forward it to you, I'd be more than happy to, either way.
Okay, any further discussion? By roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yep.
Max Bauer?
Yes.
Lemkool?
Yes.
Inman?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes.
Gilman?
Yes.
Fleece?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Richardson?
Yes. Okay, for the consent calendar, which brings us to our first department action item, resource recovery with sale of household hazardous waste storage trailer. Bob?
What I have for you tonight is a request to sell a
Bob?
drop deck trailer.
Introduce yourself.
Bob, I'm sorry, could you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Bob Ostart, Resource Recovery Manager. What I have before you tonight is a request to sell a drop deck trailer. It's been sitting at the DPW garage for probably close to 7 years. It hasn't been used. We are using the hazmat unit that was on the trailer. It's been taken off. The trailer was originally purchased with a CMI grant, which is a Clean Michigan Initiative grant. It was used for probably 2.5 to 3 years for mobile household collection events, and those stopped at the end of 2004. I don't have a use for the trailer. I'd like to see if we could find somebody that could use it and hopefully get some use out of it somewhere.
Commissioner Gilman?
Move to approve the sale of the trailer. Support.
Herb?
Yeah, I'm just wondering if any of our emergency response people would be interested in doing any of this, if we publicize to them and let them know it's available.
I could do that. I will do that. I did talk to Danny Brown in facilities to see if he had any use for it, and he didn't, but I can touch base with
Herb, it is
other
actually a
ones.
drop deck semi-type trailer. It's not.
It's
a trailer
not.
that you can pull behind a pickup or something like that.
Okay.
It is
I
a
just-
fifth wheel semi-type trailer.
Okay.
Bob's exactly right. When it was purchased, the container that he's taken off and is using was sitting on that trailer, and it was modified slightly after we got it. I must say probably in the late 80s, maybe?
It was purchased in 2011.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
No, not 2011.
2001. It was
2001,
purchased,
okay, so it was later than I
so-
thought it was. But it was modified to use, because if you remember some of the first household hazardous waste things we did one at West Junior High School, and we did one at a couple different places, one at the Civic Center, I think we did one at the mall, over that period of time. And at that time, we didn't have any facility. And then we partnered with the DPW to use the garage facility, and therefore we had a fixed location So it makes sense to continue to use the fixed location and not have the portable. And there's no reason to have this trailer taking up space and sitting.
Well, I just thought maybe somebody from the emergency, either rural or metro fire or
No, it's not
someplace,
that
one of
kind
those
of a trailer.
organizations might be interested. So if you let Wayne Mueller or Chief Mueller and Pat Parker know, then they can
Yeah.
put the word out.
Okay, any further
Chief Mueller hasn't
discussion?
been here for a long time.
Okay, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, Todd.
Don't run off.
Which brings us to the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program, excuse me. We have a presentation by Dan Busby.
Thank you. I'm Dan Busby with the Grand Traverse Conservation District. I've been employed with the district since spring of 2000. And there's been some other counties in the area where their county commission has supported the MEAP program. And I just wanted to give you some information about the MEAP program and the Michigan Water Stewardship Program, which works with the state MEAP program, as I'd like to show you. So I have a quick presentation here to, we'll run through this pretty quick. It'd be a presentation that's kind of geared towards farmers, but it's geared down a little bit, not so specific, so I'll give you some background information about the program. Great thing is it's a partnership of different organizations in the state, and MSU Extension was a large partner, especially with the beginning of this program, and Natural Resource Conservation Service, and other partners in the different localities around the state. And biggest thing is that it's a voluntary program that helps residents protect our water quality in the state. And we have different ways of doing that. You'll see here in a second, or let's see here, backspace one. The logo up on the upper right-hand side is the newer logo for the residential program, and the logo on the upper right-hand side is the old logo from back when, next slide, Senator George McManus is the one that legislatively enabled the program back in 1994. It's been administered by the Department of Agriculture since then, and it generates around $4 million a year, and funds are restricted use funds that come from fertilizer produced per ton paid directly by the companies. Just the nitrogen portion of the fertilizer, since that was and is a groundwater concern in the state. And also paid by pesticide suppliers that pay a fee for each pesticide sold in the state. And about 60% of that comes from agriculture and 40% comes from homeowners buying products. And it's part of the NREPA, National Resources and Environmental Protection Act. This is the main thing right here, is the Pharmacist is the tool. This tool has really come a long way over the years. It's a sit down at the coffee table or at the kitchen table with the grower to go over everything on the farm. We look at management practices and different structures for storing things, site conditions, and plans, management plans, and things that they might have, and work with them on these things on the farm. We're qualified to look at different things on the farm, so it's got to be done by a trained technician. We try to keep these in our hands and work with the growers. But it's voluntary and confidential, so anything in here and this information stays with the farm. And there's the Pharmacist, and it really is a great tool for helping a farmer identify and reduce risks on the farm. From pesticides and fertilizers and fuels and waste management, from septics and drain fields, we look at all that kind of stuff. It's tied in with local compliance rules and regulations, and it's also tied in with the compliance with the Right to Farm GAMPs, which are generally accepted agriculture management practices. And it also ties in with restricted use credits for growers. They get credits for that, kind of like educational credits, and also insurance rebates for going through there and reducing risk on their farm. This is what a page of the assessment would look like, and it's kind of coded. The blue boxes let us know that there's something really need to be addressed there. The one on the bottom, it says in the pesticide use GAMP that a grower has to have a written pesticide drift management plan in case drift does occur, and so they have to have a written management plan. Many growers did not at the time, but it's something that we help them out with, produce a plan and implement that plan. So it's coded to let us know what's required and things of that nature. The Crop Assist tool is the tool that we use for field assessment. We look at management practices in the field and, ways to reduce risk from nutrient management and pest management, how they handle and store their manure, things of that nature, soil sampling, erosion, we look at a lot of different things there, irrigation. And they also have this for orchards and vineyards. We have, here's the new tool, they've been updated quite a bit over the years. I have a copy of all these different tools I have here, if you'd like to take a peek at any of these. But we once again look at soil and water conservation practices on the farm, and the water use reporting, irrigation management, and any other type of environmental risks that might be out on the farm, using turkey and poultry manure or manure in relation maybe to food safety and water quality. Livestock tool is a tool that we obviously use for live farms with livestock. We look at, make sure they have a whole farm nutrient balance, do a full site review, make sure there's, no or low risk to surface or groundwater in the area. Work with emergency management on emergency plans. Another thing, through the funding for the program, and it has been ever since, is the spill response. If a grower has a spill, the FDA has a 1-800 number where they can get 24-hour assistance in case hauling a trailer of fertilizer and it spills, or in the ditch or something like that. Then they get the emergency folks involved and go from there. There used to be financial assistance and technical support for that. We have a couple of different MDA staff right in town here that would deal with something like that. And they've happened quite a few times in the 10, 12 years I've been here involved. This was a flagship. We used to close a lot of wells in the area. We worked with the health department closing wells, and we had funds through the program. Abandoned wells are a direct conduit to our groundwater, and it's very important that they're closed. It's pretty cost-effective, cheap, and inexpensive to close wells. And they also can obviously be a safety hazard. It seems like you hear that every year. Somebody falls in a pit or a pit well or a pit or, a dug well. And every farm's got one. We've closed hundreds of thousands of wells throughout the state. This is one thing we work with the resource recovery a lot with, is clean sweep, the proper disposal of pharma chemicals. The chemicals that are taken in at the collections each year, at the hazardous waste collections, the fee or the cost for the pesticide disposal is taken care of through the program, and that's a good deal. I think they also pay for the mercury and pharmaceutical disposals too, because the state got a grant to help supplement and add items to the clean sweep program. To the date, I think the program has pulled in almost 2 million pounds of pesticides since the beginning of the program that would have been either buried in the back 40 or who knows what, in our landfills is what happens. They come back to haunt us. So it's been a great program. I've loved working with this program. The picture on the bottom, that guy actually got exposed during this collection and had to actually go in the hospital for a day. That was during a collection up in Leelanau County just about 3-4 years ago. So accidents can happen with this kind of stuff. We do a container disposal, pesticide container disposal with the local agronomists and the agronomy locations in town. Just make sure they're clean, triple rinse containers and stuff like that. It's a good program. Emergency planning is another way we work with county and emergency management. And we work with growers on SARA Title III compliance and MIOSHA compliance, things of that nature, and help them put emergency plans together. This is actually a picture of the Rennie School farm fire that happened just a couple years ago, where that could have been a disaster, but he disclosed that he had some material in there and it was a loss, but things are all right there now. So, and that's the main thing. That's a really important part of that's required for MEEP. So it really helps drive getting these plans into the county, and it's been a good thing to have. A couple other different program initiatives that I work on through the Conservation District and the program is, work with a lot of different local partners on residential programming, work with some of the turf grass folks in the area on nutrient and pest management, work a lot with our USDA office in administering the conservation programs. And also we've been involved quite a bit lately with the Food and Farm Network through the Grand Vision. And through that, we actually just hired in January, we got funding from the Department of Agriculture through a pilot program to help work with growers on food safety. Small, usually direct market growers, and introduce you to Garrett Coggin back here. And he's going to be implementing the food safety program. He's been out there in the field for a couple months already and meeting with growers. So I've also been involved with the Leadership Grand Traverse program and helped them with 3 different years of Ag and Natural Resources Day. That was good to have. And also was involved in the New Farm Leadership Program, which you might have heard we just got back from our trip from New Zealand about a month ago. So. And then I'll run it over to Tom, and you'll see how what I do with the growers with these assessment tools works into the meat verification. Go ahead and hand them out.
I'm Tom Young with the Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, and I'm one of 3 meat verifiers in the state, and work very closely with the conservation districts and the technicians to carry out the Michigan Ag Environmental Assurance Program. So what is MEAP? It's not the high school test or whatever for education. It's a partnership with farmers, industry groups, conservation agencies, and it is implemented by MDA. Certainly the Groundwater Stewardship Program has basically evolved into the MEAP program. It gave us a final point of all the tools and then making the corrections on the farm to address environmental issues. And it does apply to any type of farm and any size, and we've tried to tailor some of our assists to specialty crops like nursery, fruit growers, and so on. The mission of MEAP is develop a proactive environmental assurance program. We want it to be confidential, and it is voluntary, but we very clearly lay out to ag producers what the practices are or things that need to be done to meet the environmental regulations that exist in the state, and also the Right to Farm program. And in order to be covered by that, you need to be following GAMPs, or Generally Accepted Ag Management Practices. And we really think it promotes environmental stewardship and protects the environment. So we have over 50 partners. We've really tried to involve everybody in the ag community or that support the ag community. So you can see we have a lot of support for the program in a variety of commodity groups and Michigan State and other agencies involved. So how does MEAP work? The first, what we call phase 1, is farmers attending some type of educational meeting, environmental educational meeting, and we introduce the MEAP program, and they get credit for attending that. So we want to keep the farmers up to date on what is out there as far as environmental regulations. Then phase 2 is the on-farm assessment, and then that would be the assists. Going through that, working with the farmer, and that's where the local conservation districts come in. They really do the main work in this program. They're working with the farmers to address all those risks. They identify them, then they help them find funding sources, help them work through correcting those problems, and then the farm would be ready for third-party verification or to be verified in the MEAP program. And that's where I come in as a verifier to verify that those things have been corrected on the farm. Come in kind of like as a third party, and so after the district does all the work, I come in and take the credit for the verification. So that's the basic process. And you know, we're looking at everything. Dan touched on it. I won't go into it in detail, but we're looking at everything. Where's the well located on the farm, and pesticides, fertilizers, manure, nutrient issues, in their shop, floor drains, used oil, you name it. We're going to look at it and see how that relates to environmental impact. So again, we use a variety of tools to do that. And the verification process itself should not be a surprise to the farmers. They request the verification when they feel that they're ready. So they call into Lansing to request it. And again, it's confidential, non-regulatory. We do not take anything off the farm so that they feel like we would have some information related to it. That helps in the program. It is non-regulatory, but we're letting them know what the regulations are out there. And so the process is really pretty straightforward. Once they, and basically the checklists that I use are just a subset of the assist. And these are the boxed items that Dan had showed you that are regulations or right to farm GAMPs. Those are the things that they have to meet to get verified in the various systems. When they are verified, they get a certificate of participation from MDA. They certainly can get a farm sign, and I don't know if you've seen those. This is a small version of the signs that you might see out in front of farms. You have great participation in this area. I cover about a third of the state, and this is one of the best areas for farmers to participate in this program. So a lot of, they've been very well accepted to go through this process. And they do get a letter from local government, state representative in the area. And as part of what Grand Traverse, the Conservation District, is looking for is a resolution, and we have done this in other counties, Huron County and Tuscola County, I know, for example, have resolutions. They have the support from the commissioners for going through this process, and actually, in those counties, a letter is sent from the county commissioners congratulating them and having addressed their environmental risk on their farm. So if they do not, as a result of the verification visit, aren't eligible for verification, I'm going to clearly identify the changes that need to be made. We call it pending, and as soon as those are corrected and we come back, we will verify the farm. So it's going to check on what has been accomplished. And Dan talked a lot about the things that we address related to farms, and reasons why farmers participate. Well, I think it's different for everybody, but some want to address their environmental concerns, some want to reduce their liability. They certainly know if they're following the generally accepted practices that they have right to farm protection, so they're not subject to nuisance lawsuits for general accepted ag practices that they may do. It certainly shows to the public that they're taking care of the environment, and they have access to cost share. They know what the regulations are that are out there, a lot of different reasons. And I think that from the farmer's point of view, they are much more acceptable to a program that isn't strictly compliance-oriented or regulations that really wouldn't fit all the various different farm operations that we have. So this way they can do it, they're doing it voluntarily, yet getting the same things accomplished. So I think that's really been why we've gotten so much participation. Certainly in March of last year, that kind of lay it out. March of last year passed MEEP into law, and it did give some incentives for farmers. They would not, if there's an accidental discharge, be subject to fines or penalties. They still have to clean up spills. They would be responsible for resource damages, but they would not have to pay the fines and penalties related to it if they have been through all the applicable MEEP verification standards. And then there's some other things related to discharges. So that gave us a boost. We also really have seen a great increase in participation. Currently, we have over 10,000 farms in the process of working towards verification. We have over 1,000 verifications statewide, and we have definitely made some reduced phosphorus getting into surface waters and reduced nitrogen reduction as well. And nitrogen can also impact the groundwater. So we tried to put some of the environmental gains from the MEAP program into perspective. Sediment would fill 18,000 dump trucks of soil. Phosphorus could reduce 85,000 tons of algae. And the nitrogen reduced through this program would have contaminated over almost 9 billion gallons of water. Environmental outcomes, and this is for the last 3 years of the program. And currently, and actually we're past that, this was last month, we're over 1,100 verifications in the state and continuing to grow pretty fast. We want to use MEAP, we would like the farmers also to use MEAP to promote what they're doing, to show to the public that, hey, we are taking care of the environment as well. And so opportunities to promote, the good things that they have done. And so we try to provide information, and we certainly need to do a better job of letting the public know that they have addressed these environmental concerns. So hopefully there's a lot of farms that are pretty proud of it. I know you're not going to be able to drive around here very far in farm country and not see these MEAP signs out. So with that, is there any questions? We haven't talked specifically about the resolution.
Hold on, go. Commissioner Gilman?
Are you a quasi-governmental, a governmental, or a private organization?
MEAP is just a partnership itself. It is administered by Michigan Department of Agriculture, and the cost share money that goes for the technical assistance comes from the tax on pesticide and fertilizer, a small tax. So that allows us, we have well over 30 technicians in conservation districts around the state, and so that allows us to administer that. And it is, in a way, we're pushing it to the local conservation districts to work with the local landowners.
And you
versus
mentioned
the state coming in.
You mentioned $400 million. Is that the tax you're talking about on the pesticides?
Oh, $4 million.
$4 million, okay. I was going to say that's an awful lot.
Wow, I wish we had.
Okay. Now this statement right here, it's a cost-effective investment for all Michigan with more than $360 return for every $1 of state tax dollars invested. How do you come up with that?
I would mention by saying that the local conservation districts work with the local farmers and help them access a lot of the NRCS dollars. And some of the NRCS conservation program dollars are huge dollars that come in.
So the return is a movement of money, not necessarily a creation of wealth or anything. It's just a movement from grant sources or financial help from the
I
feds.
think most of that's actually environmental gains from the cost that it costs to deal with nutrient loading issues in Saginaw Bay or something like
Well,
that.
the reason I ask is because we went through this with the Michigan State, the MSU extension, in 2011, or at least I did. I had a lot of questions about it, and they were talking about $17 for every dollar invested, and they brought up their expert, who essentially said, yes, that's our calculation, we use a particular model, but we have no way of knowing what the money would have done otherwise without it being spent on that. In other words, it was an absolute, it didn't mean anything in the end. My concern, of course, when the reason I ask about the whether it's governmental, quasi-governmental, why would we need
if we could just educate the farmers best practices, why do they need, if it's voluntary, why do they need to go through the process to do the right thing? I mean, or is this the nose under the camel's nose under the tent, and what you're doing at the other side of it is lobbying then to push for more regulations?
Really, I believe it's totally the opposite of that. And we sell it to the farmers that way as well. This is voluntary. MEEP did not invent or create any of the standards that exist. We went out and worked with DEQ and all the other regulatory agencies to say what does it take to be in compliance with the fuel regulations that exist in the state. Very complicated, you know. We negotiated with them and said, okay, these are the type, you know, this, you need a fuel pad, you need a cement pad in front of it, you know, you need the right type of tanks and ventilation and those kind of things. If anything, we're hoping that MEEP really slows down or reduces regulations related to agriculture that may not very well fit all the diverse you know, farming practices that we have in the state. As far as crops, Michigan is second to California, and you know, the different variety of crops that are grown in the state. So what a regulation that may fit a dairy farm doesn't fit an orchard and vice versa. So we're trying to come up with, and I think this is letting the farmers know the assist or educating them that these are the regulations out there. A lot of them didn't know that there's certain regulations or even how to approach complying with those regulations. So we're kind of educating to that. We can point them towards cost share that may exist. Like if they need a chemical containment building because they're storing all their old chemicals in a barn and there's just no containment or anything, we may say, hey, there is an opportunity to apply to NRCS, the federal end of things, to get a new chemical building. Then you can safely store your chemicals in it, for example.
So you could say with certainty then that your group, MEEP, is not advocating further restriction on farms. They're not advocating further regulation or further restriction of land use by small farmers or you know, gentleman farms or any of the family farms that are trying to basically, you know, manage their budgets. I mean,
yeah, exactly. And we really do. We are not supporting further regulations by any means. We are trying to help them understand what does exist right now, and there is a lot of savings in good management as well through like the cropping system. In a lot of cases, we're really showing them that they can save money on their fertilizer by using it more efficiently, and you know, the benefit then is protecting the environment. But certainly there's a lot of cost savings involved in it, and if they have a spill, that can be very detrimental to a farm as well. And containment can be as simple as you know, when you get into chemical containment, we're not saying that they have to have the state-of-the-art chemical building or something like that. Can they put a liner in and put the chemicals on that? Can they put it in a freezer, you know, that acts as containment? So we're always looking for cost-effective ways to help them meet those environmental issues that exist right now. You know, and by no means, we would not have the partnership if we were promoting totally opposite.
okay, so this is kind of a backwards legislative piece that just says we're not, basically, since you've participated with this, you got a certain level of protection and a way out of any further problems until you get it solved. I mean, is that,
we identify what their problems are on the farm, and it's at their pace to meet those. And if they ultimately correct the things that have been identified, then they can request the MEEP verification. You know, and the benefits, like I said, you know, they know they're reducing liability. They do have this in law now that they wouldn't be subject to fines or penalties if they had a chemical spill and they cleaned it up and, take care of everything, so.
I appreciate your answers, I really do,
Yeah.
because, I come into this and I'm looking at this, I'm, here we go again, I'm here from the government, I'm here to help you. And so I always worry about this, I'm a little
Yeah.
distrustful of plans, programs, to help, and so I appreciate your answers, thank you.
I could point you, you could talk to a couple different growers that could help answer that question too, and maybe how MEEP has benefited their farm, because a lot of the bigger growers in this area are verified, and they take it very seriously, Once that sign's there, they don't want to lose it, and they like being in touch with the program, because we know what the regulations are and what's coming down the road, so once we get them in, they really like it, and they take a lot of pride in it, and a lot of them are using it for, a lot of the wineries up on the peninsula in Leland are verified, they got that sign sitting right by the parking lot, and they just eat it up, so, and they've done a lot to do that too, and they're really, protecting the environment. My thing too, and the whole program overall is, we don't have a residential program anymore, and in Northwest Michigan, a lot of our water quality concerns are from failing septics along the lake shores and non-point source pollution and other items like that. I'm not saying that farmers don't pollute at all, but they're not a big part of the water quality problem in our area. I'd like to have more residential programming to work with everyday users of these products, because that's where a lot of our problems are coming from in this area.
And to add that, the groundwater program evolving into the MEEP, the Michigan Ag Environmental Assurance Program, farmers are paying for this through that small tax on nitrogen and pesticides, and then we're giving it back to them, no cost. It isn't that we're coming in and charging them for doing this. It's all at no cost. It is allowing the local conservation district to work with the farmers versus the state coming in and saying, you need to do this or that. And so I think it's it's a great program, and it is so much better to get these farmers to buy into doing this versus, saying you must do that. We're trying to get them to accept it, understand it, and feel that that's the right thing to do, so.
Dan, how many farms in Grand Traverse County have been certified? Can you tell us that?
I should have checked before I left. I cover 4 counties. I cover Benzie, Leelanau, Grand Traverse, and Antrim, and there's over 100 of the 4 counties right now.
I think it's around 40 for Grand Traverse. Yeah.
It made a comment that the letter is sent to the governments in the area. I don't remember if we've ever received a letter.
From the local township?
Yeah.
Is it the township that gets a letter?
They get a letter from the town, and they.
Okay, so the township, but not the county doesn't get a letter.
Yeah, and that's why, I'll bring up Huron County again, for example. Between, Huron County, Grand Traverse County, they're some of the biggest conservation districts in the state, as far as what they do and budgets and everything. Huron County is a huge agricultural county. The commissioners adopted the resolution, and then they send a letter, every time there's a verification. They do it in a batch so that it isn't, a workload issue, but, and the conservation district provides them with the letters, but they a letter is sent to the farmer congratulating them for voluntarily going through this program. So, that's
It's
really
about that community awareness piece, a lot of the farm community is pretty aware of this program, but the local community really isn't, so.
And I think the district would like, if you're interested in adopting this type of resolution, then we're going to try to promote it too,
So, well, I just, because I'm your liaison for the Conservation District, I've seen this presentation, and I just felt it was very important to be brought to you and to the rest of the people in our communities. I feel it's a very valuable tool that we have, and with that in mind, I'll make a motion to support the resolution for funding for MEEP for the state of Michigan's 2013 budget.
Support.
I have a motion by Lemkool, support by Thomas. Mr. Wheelock, and then...
I guess, I have just a few things. One, I think we have to remember that the key component of this is an educational piece. because there are so many of the old farm sites that have chemicals sitting in cisterns and all different places that, I've been in, and I'm sure a number of the rest of you have, but they truly don't have a clue how to get rid of it. They don't know what to do with it. Some of it's not labeled, they don't even know what it is. So, the educational component of this program is excellent for us. I think we're a little bit deceiving when we say that it's a no-cost program, because every time they buy fertilizers, they pay for it.
Yeah, they're paying
Yeah,
for
they're paying
this
for it. This is
service to them.
absolutely a user-funded program.
It is, it
If
is.
you're gonna buy fertilizer, you're gonna pay for the program. Whether you use it or not, that's up to you, but if you buy fertilizer, you're gonna pay for it.
And,
so-
I'm incorrect in saying no cost, because these farms have spent thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars locally, even in this county, to get to a point of being meat verified, when they gotta
And-
change their fuel and,
And that's exactly,
address
the
everything.
third point that I want to make is our community is very fortunate for a number of reasons. One, the fact that our people are very conservation-minded. They've done a great job of helping to clean up a number of these sites. I'm not saying they're all gone, but there's a lot of them that have done a great job cleaning it up. The Clean Sweeps program that we run through the county's Resource Recovery Department is huge. We made the decision to hold a fourth household hazardous waste collection this spring down in South County. It's going to be held at the Road Commission facility on M113. We're anticipating that we could see significant amounts of herbicides and pesticides at this collection that, people would have never packed them up and brought them up here to the DPW garage. So,
Yeah, we promoted it really hard last fall, and Bob would probably attest to that they saw a big bump in pesticides in the fall. Summer and fall
but that's a program that, unlike some of the other stuff we collected, our household hazardous waste, the funding is in this program that helps us pay to get rid of that stuff. So it's an excellent program, and, my point is, first, that our community is very fortunate to have the program. Secondly, that there are still a number of sites in our community that people have not been involved in the program because they truly don't know what to do with the products. And that's where the education piece comes in.
I got my card with me if you want.
I think I know where you're at, Dan.
Could you go into a little bit more about the funding aspect? This is funded, you mentioned fertilizer tax?
Yeah, there was a small tax on nitrogen fertilizer. Because originally, being called the groundwater program, nitrogen was one of the pollutants that we're concerned with, and
Nitrogen leaches.
yeah, and Grand Traverse County has some elevated levels of nitrates, and one of the things we do is we always request that there's a water test done on the farm for nitrates. But so that tax is then collected and administered by the Michigan Department of Agriculture's and the Environmental Stewardship Division. And that money, most of it goes right back out to the conservation districts to fund technicians to help promote the program.
Okay, that tax is collected, does all of it go to the MEEP program, or does some of it go to other areas?
No, I think it all goes to the MEEP program, whether it's support staff or technicians. We used to
Cost share.
put more to cost share, but we've tried to use NRCS cost share, as far as that goes. So the MEEP program had very little general fund money coming from the state of Michigan, and after it was passed into law last year, they are proposing to give the MEEP program some additional funding so that we can get a few more verifiers, and we'd like to put another 8 technicians out in the field as well. We're really trying to ramp it up with a goal, very high goal, of having like 5,000 farms verified in the next few years. So.
Okay, and if the MEEP program wasn't there, where would this money go?
It always just went towards the conservation districts for technical assistance.
Okay, and there's no talk of putting it someplace else, or?
It's restricted use funds, and it's been that way since the beginning, so it's not general use dollars by any means. It's earmarked just for the program, and it has been. And once again, it was Senator George McManus, when he was in town here, that followed the legislation through. And the clean sweep, it was a big part of it, being up here in the fruit area and being an extension guy. He knew how much pesticides were out there in the community and stuff, and he needed a program and a way to deal with it and pay for it. So.
Every 10 years or so, I think they reauthorize sunsets, and then they reauthorize, and it's been reauthorized before, and I think it comes up again in a couple of years.
Every 3 years.
Yeah, and
Is the 3-year sunset?
well, I know the next time, I believe, is 2014 is when it comes up again.
It's usually a 3-year.
I guess what I'm looking at is, your program's great. And my grandfather is a cherry farmer. I've spent thousands of hours working the farm. I get it, and the program sounds great. The resolution is asking me to tell the state that I want you to keep this in your budget, but you're telling me these are earmarked tax dollars anyways.
Well, no, the proposed budget's adding some more funds into the meat program, minus the general use funds. It's addition to. It's kind of adding to.
Okay, so this
the dollars that
resolution
are already-
really isn't concerned with whether the program is good, but it's supporting more money.
Right.
And where do you suggest we take that from?
Not out of yours, it's just.
I mean, law enforcement, education.
Yeah, no, and that's what, we're not asking for any financial support, and that's why this is more just a community awareness, and that you know about the program and support the meat growers in the area, and just, so there's a.
And it really is, I don't know if it's, supporting the funding isn't the real goal of this. I think it is to have the support of the county behind the program.
Well, you have my philosophical support, absolutely. But the way this resolution reads is commissioners shall support the funding of Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program in the state of Michigan's 2013 annual budget, and recognizes the agricultural, commitment to natural resources, et cetera.
Doesn't ask for an increase.
Am I reading the right?
Doesn't
Yeah,
ask for an increase.
You're reading the right thing.
that's what it says?
That's what it says in here. Yeah.
So the resolution is to support more funding? Who wrote the resolution, I guess?
Actually, it was me, it was drafted
All
by
right.
me I looked at the one from Huron County.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't know, is it to support the funding or support the program? Is maybe the wording
more or
needs
less
to
just to
change.
support the
I
program.
think they're after supporting.
Well, so you guys are more asking for philosophically, we support the idea of this, that,
And like I mentioned, in other counties, the farmers actually, after they go through the process, they get a letter from the commissioners congratulating them for participating in the program.
I think that's great, and it's great community interaction, local farmers interacting with their government and getting recognition, that's wonderful. I just,
Wording maybe
letter
needs
of
to
the
be
resolution concerns me, and that is, we're telling the state that we want you to take money from somewhere and put more into this.
Okay. Anyone else?
How do you feel about that? Can we change that to support the program instead of support the funding?
That would be fine.
All right, so if we just kind of back that out, so you made the motion though, didn't you, instead of me? I would just strike the term, the words funding of the, and then it shall read, the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners shall support the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program in the state's Michigan 2013 budget.
Yeah, that's fine.
Is that okay with
That works for me.
That's okay? You're okay with that? Okay. Is there any member of the public who has any public comment on this issue?
If you were going to actually head where he suggested you would strike the last little 3-4 words there about.
Sir, if you want to make a comment, if you could just come up to the table and identify yourself, please.
How you doing? Good. My name is Bill Klaus. I believe if you actually wanted to remove the entirety of a reference to funding, you would remove, I think, the last 3 or 4 words that Sonny had read.
Well, I don't think you can, because it's a state-funded program, it still has to be in the budget. So it still has to show up in the 2013 budget. So I think it's correct to read, therefore, Be it resolved, Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners shall support the Michigan Agriculture Environmental Assurance Program in the state's Michigan 2013 annual budget, and recognizes the agricultural community's commitment to conserving our shared natural resources and supporting our regional economy. Because it's a state-funded program, it has to have a place in the budget. So I think we still have to make reference to the 2013 budget.
Okay.
Okay? At least that's the way I would think.
We could just support the program without even mentioning the budget.
Okay. Is there any other public comment at this point? Okay, does everybody understand the motion?
Yep.
I'm sorry, Mr.
Yeah,
Gilman.
just one last thing. I'm going to vote no to this because it generally moves, I mean, the window gets moved, the generally accepted practice is getting moved, and I would have one other question. Who is more involved right now as far as who is more certified, larger or smaller operations?
Actually, very much a mixture of everything in between. We were out on a very small farm this morning in honor to Barton Hagen Berries this afternoon. Yesterday, or last week, they did Dean Ward Johnson's farm out on Mission. Cherry Bay Orchards, Gregory's up in Leland are verified. I'm meeting with Veliquettes, Nels, and Bruce next week. A lot of the bigger growers are verified, a fair amount of the medium growers. A lot of times the medium growers have another job, so they don't always have time to meet with me. So a mixture, quite a mixture. And actually, around the state and the thumb,
I support education on it. I support education, and I think it could probably be handled through the MSU extension efforts as well. And I don't understand, there is an underlying motive that we're missing, and I don't feel comfortable supporting it at this point. I may change my mind at the end of the month and may not pull it from the agenda,
and quite frankly, my original intent was just to make you all aware of the program, really.
And
believe that you knew about the program and that our growers are leading the state.
And we appreciate that. I understand that it was suggested by Commissioner Lemko, so.
Anyone else? Okay, everybody understand? Yes.
Just clarification, could we have the last paragraph read as amended?
Yes, could you read
The motion is as amended.
Right, she's going to read the motion.
To support the resolution as amended.
I'm just curious, I don't have the amended copy, I just have the packet.
The striking
What happens because you can't scribble on yours. I can
Therefore,
scribble
be it
with
resolved.
That's
right. Excuse me, Jack is
Therefore,
going
it
to
be resolved that the Grand Traverse County Board of Commissioners shall support the Michigan Agricultural Environmental Assurance Program in the state of Michigan's 2013 annual budget and recognizes the agricultural community's commitment to conserving our shared natural resources and supporting our regional economy. Thank you.
By roll call, please.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Henschel,
No.
Gilman,
No.
Felice,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yep.
Chairman Richardson.
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you,
Dan.
Okay, that brings us to another fun topic here, the county
Another fun topic.
administrative selection process.
This is the show.
We had, if I can, Jen, I don't know, do you want to do this or you want me to? It's up to you.
Go for it.
Okay. We obviously went through the first step of the process, which is we got all these resumes in. Jen pretty much eliminated 20 of them based on just not meeting the minimum qualifications or minimum experience. So that left us with 51. I think any of us who wanted to see them has seen those 51 applications. So what I proposed here, if I can find it, is just a suggestion as a way to get to the next step, which is to say, Jen through her point rating system came up with the top 9. Some of us had other individuals that we thought maybe looked as interesting or maybe were as qualified in some other ways. So what I was suggesting is that we take we each vote for 15. This is my suggestion, and obviously this is totally open to discussion, amendment, whatever. I'm suggesting that each of us vote for 15, which we give five individuals 3 votes each, 5 individuals 2 votes each, and 5 individuals 1 vote each. So we basically have, each of us has 3 tiers. And if we don't want to go through the time and trouble to read all the resumes, or if we feel that we trust Jen, obviously we can just go with Jen's recommendation. So then Jen would then take all of our votes and rank the 51 applications, and then take the top 15, excuse me, just a minute, let me finish, and then with those 15, then the top 15 based on the votes of the 9 of us, that she then schedules Skype or telephone interviews, which of course would be open to the public, which doesn't involve, transporting people here and taking 2 or 3 days or whatever. So then we can participate in observing these Skype interviews if we wish to, and then from that, then the next step would be to narrow from 15 down to some smaller number who would then actually be invited to come to Grand Traverse County and be interviewed. Okay, so that's pretty much what this is about. The third part of the process I haven't really defined. I'm really only interested in the second part of the process, which is the, how we rank the applicants and how we find a way to assess, the top 15. So at that point, I'll open it up. Commissioner Massenbauer.
I like this.
It's a broker.
I really do like this, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for this process. The only thing that you said that I was not fond of is if you want to just go with Jen's recommendations, which you can, but I think you still should, as a commissioner, I think you should still go ahead and rank them. I think everybody should submit a number. If you don't submit numbers in the system, then I don't think it should count. How do you know who's going to be, out of her 9, who's going to be the 5s or the 3s and who's going to be the 2s? So that's the only question I have, but I really do like this.
Okay. Commissioner Raymond and then Commissioner Thomas.
Well, when I first read this, I thought it was fairly close to what we had done when we originally did the narrowing down of the search with the search firm when we eventually hired Dennis Aloya, is that they actually came in what they felt was the top 20 candidates. And then we had a subcommittee called the Legislation Administration Committee, and the commissioners reviewed those. And my recollection is that the committee pulled some of the recommended candidates out and wanted to add a couple candidates into it, and we came to a kind of a compromise, and then we brought it to the commission, and they had an opportunity to review all the applicants along with the recommendation from the Legislation Administrative Committee, and it passed, and that's how we ended up narrowing down the candidates at that point in time. And we didn't go through a Skype interview, but we ended up narrowing it down to 10, and then I think Sonny reminded me 3 decided not to come in, so we ended up having 7. But I think your approach is a good approach, because it does give an opportunity for people to take Jen's suggestion and add them to the top of the list if they choose to do so. And it also gives the commissioners other opportunities to maybe say, well, I'd like, instead of the top 9, maybe I like the top 15 and I want to add some more to that list, or mix them up just a little bit. So, if we want to take, I would be more welcome to take the time to come up here and review the applications again, since my computer is down and crashed at the moment. So I'd be more than happy to come in and review the applications again and just have staff prepare a ranking system as you've suggested, give it to the commissioners, and then see how we all compare and see how it comes out. I think it's a fair way of doing it.
Commissioner Thomas?
However you want to do it is fine. I'm satisfied with the 9 that Jan went through. So.
Okay. And the key for me, and the reason I'm asking for the Skype interviews, is sometimes people in person appear very different than they do on paper.
resume.
And there was a situation, I think, when the city was looking to replace their city manager a few years ago, where someone who had ranked very high on everyone's list based on the resume was not overwhelming in person, so anyway. So, yes.
Jen, my only concern about is the Skype interviews being a public process. What's the legal ramifications on that, and what, are we all right with doing something like that? Is it something that you should be doing the Skype interviews individually and then bringing back your recommendations, or what? That's my only concern about that.
We can do the Skype interviews right in here.
Okay.
I've talked to Don Sheehan about it. And we can get it set up so that way the interviews are set up in here. Regarding legal ramifications, I mean, I'll defer to Bob's expertise on that, but I wouldn't foresee any that we wouldn't have with an in-person interview if the person, or a telephone interview with the person not portraying who they really are, if that's what you're referring to. But the Skype interviews have been done, and we can certainly do them in here.
Well, I think
If you
what
wish.
Herb's point is we still have members on this list who have asked for confidentiality. But at such point, as they agree to participate in a Skype interview, confidentiality is all gone.
The candidates that have requested confidentiality have been contacted because their names have been were requested from the Record Eagle earlier this week. And they are still all of them were still interested in keeping their resume in the interview process. So we are past that at this point.
My suggestion, if we go forward with Commissioner Richardson's recommendation, once we accumulate the total, and if we agree to do a Skype interview on the top 15, is to have one moderator, perhaps John Seaman. We would have the same set of questions for each applicant, and the commissioners would just be a listening body. There wouldn't be Q&A among commissioners and the applicants. You would have a set number of questions that you would ask each applicant, and then we would get the evaluation from those questions that would be sufficient for us to invite them or not invite them. So it's not a back and forth thing. It's just
That's all.
That's
in
the
here.
paragraph of his recommendation.
Okay.
It's in here.
All right.
Okay. Well, somebody wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept Commissioner Richardson's recommendation.
I'll support it.
For the
Supported by Max
next
Bauer.
selection process.
I guess the only question I have is a time frame. When do we believe we can have these numbers to Jen? If we're going to try to keep this thing moving forward.
We probably should put a deadline on
Yeah,
this.
that's what I'm
I'd at
saying.
least like the weekend.
Is
Yeah, Ways and
Monday,
Means.
by the close of business on Monday? Is
Ways
that-
and Means, by Ways and Means?
Well, I'd like to do it before
By
that.
then, or-
Can we do it by Monday?
That's fine with me, because I'd like to, at Ways and Means, possibly have a potential date for the Skype.
Scheduling.
Right.
Monday's fine, I'll just come in tomorrow.
Yeah, Commissioner Wheelock, like
Friday,
me, is
yeah.
trying to move this thing along as quickly as
I am
possible.
too.
Isn't he though? Dean probably appreciates that, as does Jen.
I think our interim administrator
move
is
as
a
fast as
strong
I've got a couple
supporter
other
of that.
things for them to do when we get done with this project.
Can you develop a quick form and get it out to us?
Dean's doing such a great job, we're just going to start dragging our feet.
We have your top 9, but do you have a PDF with all of them?
Yes, those were emailed out as well, but Jason, I think your email,
Bounced, okay.
didn't it?
Yeah.
I'll try and...
Yeah, mine bounced
Because
too, so.
there's 3 files. There's one that's the top 9, there's one of all candidates that are qualified between A and L, and then M through Z.
Right, I got the one
Yeah.
with the top 9, and that's,
It's 378 pages, so I will...
I'm not printing it.
yeah, it's a book, I know.
But Jason, don't you have another, well, let's talk afterwards.
I have another email you can use to get to me, so that if necessary.
Yep, okay, so I can email them to you again.
Is this going to be an Excel sheet, or do I have to use a pen?
You mean like a ranking?
Yeah, the ranking.
I would, it's something as easy as 1 to 15, and I'll take your top 5, they get 3 points, 6 to 10 get 2 points, and 11 to 15 get 1 point. I don't really need a,
We could either
unless
hand them
if
in
you
or-
want a form, I'll certainly create a form.
No, I don't think.
I'm going to list you the top 12.
I think we're probably.
And last name's fine. I don't think we have,
Yeah, we'll just do that piece of paper and hand it in.
easy.
Okay, does everybody understand
Or
the
email it?
motion?
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes, certainly. I'm sorry.
Andy Mark, 2875 East Railroad Avenue. Sounds like Jen's got 9. I'm assuming a few commissioners have a couple others they'd like to add. I don't know why you've got to go through a ranking system. If Commissioner Inman has 2 he'd like to add, and Commissioner Max Bauer has a couple, and Commissioner Henschel has a couple, why can't you add them all on, do the Skype interview, eliminate the people you don't need, so you don't have to spend, Jen doesn't have to spend hours adding up all the numbers of where you guys are at. It just seems to make a lot more sense if you have a candidate you want to add, ask Jen to have added on, so you don't have to go through this whole ranking system and figure out numbers and points and values.
Thank you for your comment, but just so you know, I have several I want to remove.
So do I.
I don't know if it's several, but I have a couple.
Can I ask questions, Commissioner?
No.
No, this is not Q&A. I just wanted to let you know why.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, any other public comment on this issue? Okay, does everybody understand the motion?
Yep.
So it's as the memo is in the packet with the addition of that the rankings will be submitted by the end of business on Monday, March 19th.
And would we have Jen develop the questions?
Yeah, I
For
think
the
we
Skype
can, I think we
interview.
can talk about
Yeah.
that at Ways and Means next week.
Okay, right. Because I would just trust in her basic,
I mean, I was looking
Criteria
for
for
mostly
basic
just a
questions.
presentation by the candidate, and then maybe just, a couple simple questions after
yeah,
that.
that would
Go
be
ahead.
fine.
Well, just to let you all know, I've already sat with Jen and given her some of my questions that, and she liked at least one of them. So I just wanted you to know that I've already put out some questions that I'd like answers to.
So if we want to ask, so we should submit some of those questions. to
And
Jen if we
that
want to in
that's just my suggestion. I mean, she doesn't have to use them, but,
there. Sure.
Yeah, we're not looking for a lengthy period.
no, I just had
We'll have
some,
an opportunity for one-on-one interviews.
yeah, and these were
with those people
general
that we
questions. They
choose.
weren't anything
Right,
specific.
exactly.
Yeah, the one-on-one
Okay.
interviews will take care of those detailed questions, I think.
Right, exactly. All right,
Okay.
all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Good work, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. This brings us to the administrator's update.
Well, the first item is, starts on page 48. It's the soil erosion information that was requested. And I will take just a moment to go through that. We started looking at several of the elected officials' offices in January, and we had some additional discussion last month at the Resource Management and Administration meeting, but we were asked to take another look at the soil erosion function. We currently have our Drain Commission office does both drain and soil erosion duties. The first paragraph of my memo indicates that that soil erosion component is actually an authority or an authorization that's designated by the county board. You have the right to determine who's the enforcing agent for doing that work. I then briefly lay out the current staffing of the Drain Commission office, which includes the elected Drain Commissioner, one full-time office specialist, and 2 half-time .5 FTE soil erosion inspectors for 3 FTEs total. Some references here to some information out of the annual report that Kevin provided last month at RMNA. And then I think what you were looking for was some options as to what could be done differently. And that's what I'm addressing in the third paragraph. If you were to consider removing it from the Drain Commission office or from under the Drain Commissioner, I believe the ideal place to do that would be our Construction Code Department. Jen and I did meet with Bruce Ramey. We discussed some pros and cons of doing that, and primarily if that was something that Bruce felt that he could take on. And we met with him for about an hour and discussed some issues with that, but Bruce did indicate that he felt that his department could absorb those functions, and actually there would be some nice, some things that would complement one another in doing that. Bruce also mentioned that there are 2 counties in northern Michigan that currently do that under their construction code department. To follow up, I also checked with the 7 counties that we normally look at for wage and benefit comparisons. Most of those counties, and it's not indicated here, do have that function for soil erosion performed by their elected drain commissioner. Allegan County was the one exception to that. They, in 2007, moved that function to their health department, environmental health. So it's not unheard of that it actually be the soil erosion, anyway, be done by someone other than the elected drain commissioner. I'm indicating here that there are, I think, some staffing efficiencies that we could realize by doing that. The first and foremost one that Bruce Ramey mentioned would be the fact that we could have our building and code enforcement inspectors cross-trained, and the soil erosion inspectors probably not so much, but there could be some cross-training benefits that we could realize by doing that. And keeping in mind here that we still want to serve the public, we don't want to see this as being a reduction in service. The work still needs to be done. And there's also some efficiencies that we could gain with the current office and clerical support in both offices. And what we stressed with Bruce, and when Jen and I discussed this, we do know that a main concern or a primary concern here will be to provide the same level of service. I believe that we can do that and perhaps even improve the level of service. One of the secondary things, though, that the board does have to consider is actually listed on towards the end of the memo, is that if you're going to remove the soil erosion duties from underneath the drain commissioner's responsibility, you probably want to look at that decrease in responsibility and do something with the salary. You obviously can't change, increase, or diminish that salary during the current term, so that salary would have to remain at the level that it currently is, and we're providing that information here. I know you will probably have a lot of questions regarding this, and I will try to do my best to answer those.
Commissioner Redmond?
I just want to let the public know that basically this came up, I think, upon the suggestion of, I think, Commissioner Wheelock, that he wanted to just do a quick review and evaluation of all the elected offices and see if they were mandated or not mandated, and whether something else could be done in terms of coordination of duties and those kinds of things. And we've went through the process, and the last one was the drain commissioner soil erosion piece. And then we held off to get some further information from Dean to bring it back to this meeting. I've gotten about 7 phone calls that have been generated by the article in the paper from the public, all in favor of maintaining the present combination of the drain commissioner and soil erosion. And based on a conversation I've had with the public, my feeling and my vote will be to maintain the combination of the position. I think you can make a case either way for, we're in a kind of a slow market right now in terms of activity, so you could probably make a case where, if they're separated, you can have a lower cost. But at some point in time, we're going to be, hopefully we'll begin to slowly ramp up, and at that point in time, I don't think there would be a cost savings. But I think the biggest piece out of this that I would see is the strength of an elected official and that elected official's ability to command that certain things be done by by statute rather than having that forced upon a department head or an appointed person. So I think that the present structure that we have in place now is the proper structure that we should have in place. You can make a case today either way about the efficiency and the cost savings depending on what economic times that you're in, but I think if we're looking for, what is the best for the public, and I think the best for the commission, I think maintaining the present position, elected drain commissioner with the soil erosion responsibilities as he currently has.
Okay, Commissioner Wheelock and then Commissioner Maxmeyer.
Well, obviously, I started this can of worms, so, and I will tell you, Larry, that I absolutely disagree.
Okay.
All right. A couple things. Statutorily, the drain commissioner is responsible for the public drains in the 2 lake levels that are set in this community. Everything to do with the soil erosion ordinance can be administered by anyone that this board delegates. You cannot close out a construction code permit that has a soil erosion permit on it until you get a clearance from the soil erosion department. And one thing that I heard a lot over the last few years is the delay in time of getting that to happen. I do believe that our construction code department, because of the fact that it is I can't think of the name of the term here, but it's a program that each individual component, what's the term, Dean?
It's an enterprise fund.
Enterprise fund, okay, there it is. I knew it was there. Because it's an enterprise fund, when we talk about the inspections and enforcement of the mechanical portion, mechanical fees have to pay for it. When we talk about the electrical portion, electrical fees have to pay for it. When we talk about water or plumbing, the plumbing fees have to pay for it. We have no way of being able to track this and how it's paying. When we're in a down cycle, are we supplementing the soil erosion piece with the other? I don't think so. I think if anything, it's going the other way. But the point is, if a building and activity starts to come back up, then there will be more soil erosion fees, and therefore we'll be able to hire another soil erosion inspector if that's what we need to do. But the fact is, we can absolutely track the revenue that comes from soil erosion to the cost of enforcing that ordinance. The statutory requirement is the drains. The drain commissioner, I can't eliminate him. He has to be there to statutorily enforce the drains and the 2 lake levels that are set. But the fact is, the soil erosion ordinance could be enforced by anyone. We have the most stringent soil erosion ordinance in the state of Michigan, by far. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it is the way it is. So, I still believe that we would increase our efficiency if we had the person that goes out to do the final inspection on the construction site say, yep, the drainage is in alongside of the driveway, we can sign off that piece and we can go through. There's, and I know that it's not quite that simplistic on all of it, but I am absolutely confident there's some efficiency to be gained by having construction code take care of the soil erosion permit.
Commissioner Wheelock, I feel so much better. I totally disagree with you.
I'm not surprised.
First of all, if it's not broke, don't fix it. You don't need to fix it. I completely disagree. I've been on the receiving end of soil erosion that I still have the video at home if you'd ever care to see it. I have had, and I'm sorry, I don't mean any disrespect to Bruce, but I have had a number of complaints about the construction department. I've never had one about the drain commissioner, not one. When you take a look at departmental budgets over the last 10 years, and I can't remember whether it was last year or the year before where we were provided with a 10-year spreadsheet. The drain commissioner's office, under Drain Commissioner McEllier, is the only department in the county that's actually spent less after 10 years. The only department. To say that the office isn't fiscally responsible doesn't make sense, and I don't know how it could be any more efficient than it already is. I just think that the way it is right now is working, and I think it's a mistake for the public to mess with it.
Commissioner Henschel?
I respectfully disagree, Commissioner Maxbauer. I'm an innovator. If it's not broke, break it and make it better. Okay, status quo isn't enough. We need to always be looking for better efficiencies, and Commissioner Wheelock and our administration seem to have found a way that has some promise for efficiencies. And, you know, I especially look at it from the public's point of view. If I'm going to build something, I want to deal with the government as little as possible, and if I can have one less visit and save money doing it, that's a good idea to me. So from where I'm sitting right now and the information I've been presented, I would support this idea.
Commissioner Gilman?
Dean, have you done an analysis of what the net result in cost?
Commissioner Gilman, I think that's probably impossible to do until you actually make that move. I mean, without knowing if we have the right staffing in the current setup, you know, I would almost need to have Bruce deal with the staff and the issues and the permit process for a period of time before we could come back and say, this is, I wouldn't, and let me back up. I would not anticipate that there would be additional cost in construction code to do this, and I would anticipate that we could reduce our overall cost, not this year, but in 2013, if we did reduce the salary and the benefits that are associated with the elected position.
Well, you know, and while I'm intrigued and you know, looking at the potential savings from the department, Commissioner Inman makes a really good point, and it really drives home accountability. And as an elected position, like somebody gets mad at the drain commissioner, he can go. Somebody can run against him. Somebody can run a campaign against him, and he can get the boot. And you know, as Commissioner Maxbauer pointed out, there have been complaints about our construction code department, and as you well know, we're dealing with at least one of them right now in another area. So I tend to trust where it's at right now, and I would have to say that I wouldn't want to change anything at this point until we have further study. At least we know where the money's going to be at.
Mr. Thomas?
Of all the people sitting up here, because I can't speak for everybody in the room, but over the last 35 years, I've pulled more permits than you people have ever walked by. And will you have a problem once in a while with a construction code? Yeah, I know people that have had trouble. And I had permit trouble once in a while. Soil erosion, the same thing. I agree with Christine that if you're trying to fix something, we can find enough broken things here that need fixing. And I like the idea of the elected person running I don't see any problem with either department. I've had nothing but good luck with a few exceptions. But, Bill, you have any problem?
Yeah.
That's right, you do.
I guess to kick things off, I will make a motion that we just continue the Drain Commission and soil erosion. The Drain Commissioner maintain the soil erosion responsibilities for the county, and that, inconsistent with the other recommendations for elected officials, that his salary be frozen at the current rate for the 013 salary. And I don't believe he gets a vehicle. Does he get a vehicle?
Yep.
And that
No, we eliminate, no, he does not get a
He does
vehicle.
not get a vehicle. So that would be my motion.
I'll support.
I'd like to hear public comment.
Yeah, in a couple minutes. Go ahead, Larry.
After reading Dean's comments and looking at the figures involved, and Inman and Maxbauer, I disagree with you 100%. And Chris, for somebody that thumps the table all the time for fiscal responsibility, by looking at the figures I see a potential savings possibly in 2013 of almost $100,000, the way I figure, which is the old-fashioned math method. So for you to sit there tonight and say we ought to keep that position, everything status quo, and Commissioner Inman, Chairman Inman, I don't think you two are being fiscally responsible whatsoever. What I see, and stop and think about this, you pull a permit, you're out, and here comes the code office. They do their inspections, or first comes soil erosion. Statutorily, doesn't have to be under the drain commissioner whatsoever. So here comes the drain commissioner, he looks around, yep, and he leaves. Here comes the code office. Do you know what the price of gas is?
Yes.
And guess who's paying for these trips, these automobiles, the time of the employees? What I envision, and I think I'll not support your motion, Chairman Inman, whatsoever.
All right.
What I would envision is the potential savings of almost $100,000. And I think this could work very efficiently. I think Commissioner Wheelock hit the nail right on the head. And you'll always hear complaints about regulatory agencies. Nobody likes it, just like Commissioner Gilman. I'm surprised with his attitude reference this matter. You know, it's like cops. You get a ticket, why that, no good. Soil erosion, drain commissioner, the code office. I've received complaints, probably more on the drain commissioner's office and soil erosion than I ever have on the code office. And every time I've talked to Bruce Ramey, he's been very open. He's more than willing to listen. He's willing to meet with the complainant, sit down, and iron out the matter. I would like to ask Dean a question, being we've appointed him, this board, unanimously, as the interim administrator. I'd like to see what Dean's recommendation would be for us to do, and he really sets in a pivotal position. He gets to see the whole financial picture where we see portions of it, and we see the bottom line, but we don't have the intimate knowledge like Dean does. So I'd like to ask Dean that question. What would your recommendation be?
My recommendation would be to move it to soil erosion. I mean, there is the potential here to have staff efficiencies. I mean, we've got code inspectors in construction code that I believe can pick up this work. Bruce is telling me that his staff can do it, and there is the potential to save. My guess would be, my estimate would be $50,000 to $75,000 by doing that. And because I wear your finance director hat on a full-time basis, I think I am very able to make that recommendation, and that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. When we talk efficiencies, I don't see how we could support Chairman Inman's motion. I really don't. And who's looking under stones and rocks and watching the taxes to see how much money we have coming in? And I've said it a lot of times in my tenure here. You know, it really bothers me that we manage to spend every nickel we get most of the time. You know, we're looking for a place to spend it. I think we need to go the other way. And I think if you went out and you asked any citizen on the street, I see Mr. Klaus is in attendance tonight. He probably utilizes both offices. I'm sure he has an opinion on this matter also. I think the commissioners that have said leave it need to rethink their thoughts on that. And I can see the Record Eagle headline tomorrow if you don't. Commissioners Max Bauer, Inman, Gilman are not fiscally responsible. They had the opportunity to save 75 to 100,000, and they pushed it to the side. And you know, talking about elected officials, we just went through the county surveyor, and I felt sorry for Bob. You know, for years, he didn't get anything. Well, then last year, he finally asked for something, so under the advice of Mr. Cooney, we gave him a salary, no benefits. But by gosh, we were gonna get even this year, till we found out it would cost us, I wasn't gonna get even, but some members of this board were, till we found out it would cost us more if we got rid of that elected position than if we kept him. So we still have a county surveyor, which I'm glad to see, particularly until at least the remonumentation's done and with the knowledge that man has. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
At this point, I'll take public comment and start with the Drain Commissioner, I guess, since...
Mr. Chair, thank you for that offer. People have been waiting an hour and a half now. I'd be patient and allow them to go first.
Okay. Just step up, identify yourself, and come right up and talk, please. Don't be shy.
He's never been shy.
Hello, my name is Bill Klaus. Dick Thomas, you remember Virgil Thayer, Warren Verhaeg, and Harry Newman. Some of you may.
I do.
Virgil Thayer and Warren Verhaeg were the drain commissioners that preceded Maureen Templeton, Maureen Kennedy at the time. And back in their reign, Harry Newman was also the building inspector at the time. It was real simple. We would go to the building code office. At that time, we could apply for all permits at one time. Today, we have to do a linear application to prove to the next governing body that we have the subordinate permit, which is horridly time-consuming and painfully expensive. I've got a girl that works for me. She's worked for me for 12 years, and all she does is pull permits. Full-time job pulling permits. Now, we pull more permits than anybody in Grand Traverse County. And we build all over the world. We built in Korea. We've built all over Michigan. Excuse me. When we used to go to Harry Newman, on the face of the application for the building permit, you had the choice. You could check in the box that I am or am not within 500 feet of a lake or stream or disturbing more than 1 acre. If you checked that you were not, then you moved on further to get your building permit. If you checked that you were, you had to get a soil erosion permit from Virgil or Warren. And the process was simple. I used to pull the permits myself. I used to go to the little HUD-code double-wide trailer down by the Civic Center, or in the Civic Center. That's where the office was. I could get every permit I needed in 4 hours or less. Today, we pay somebody just to get permits. And as far as causing efficiencies, if the building code office were cross-training their inspectors to do both jobs, when the building inspector goes out to inspect the foundation, prior to backfill, at that point in time, if there was a soil erosion permit required, he could easily inspect to see if the silt fence is in place and if the protective measures are being complied with and adhered to. Excuse me. At the point of final inspection, when you call for your certificate of occupancy, when the building inspector comes out to inspect the home, he could also inspect to see that things are stabilized or not. I think there's a lot of efficiency that could be added. And as far as the building code office goes, I have a lot of respect for Bruce Ramey. Bruce relies on the code and not personal feelings. Nothing, no emotions. It's quite simply whatever the code calls for is what he enforces. Not to say that we don't differ, but we respect each other. He's a true professional, and we always work through whatever our differences of opinion may be. And he's been very helpful. In years past, the Part 91, it's commonly referred to as Part 91. If you're within 500 feet of a lake or stream, or if you're disturbing more than an acre, you need a soil erosion permit. That's what we worked with. If that's what we continue to work with, it would be simple again. I just wasted 2 weeks. In fact, I'm not done wasting time yet. I've got 2 weeks into trying to obtain a decision whether or not a permit is required. Because we apparently can't check in the box anymore and tell if we're within 500 feet of a lake or stream, or if we're disturbing more than an acre. Blair Township, and again, I explained earlier that our permits are linear now. They're not, I used to call it shotgun. You apply for them all at one time. But at this point, first thing you get is the health department permit. The second thing, you've got to get an all clear from the drain commissioner's office. The third thing, you get the land use permit, and so on and so on and so on. And my clients that we build homes for, I'd let them know that it's going to take 30 days to get your permits, and if there's any revisions required whatsoever. So I've delayed hiring 3 people for 2 weeks. They started Tuesday because of these delays. I don't know if you're aware of this or not. There's 2 different permit structures. If any one of you folks go in to obtain a soil erosion permit for your own home, to work on your own site, you're going to pay, if you're required to have a permit, or if you get a permit, you're going to pay $113. If I come in to get a permit that's required to work on your same home, I have to pay $275 plus post a $500 surety bond. I'm the guy with the experience that does this every day. Why would the person with no experience be required less than someone like myself?
Bill, could you wrap it up?
Sure.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay.
Bill, can I ask you a question real quick? You build all over, and all things being equal, does the overhead and the extra time it takes to deal with a governmental entity affect your decision on where to build?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It impacts our decision on where we buy property. The nice thing about Blair Township, which is where this problem currently exists, is there's no stormwater ordinance. That's a real nice deal. That's one complete stop that's out of the way. That's one problem that doesn't exist. And we're able to build nicer projects because of it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Give me a second, get up there, hope it doesn't keep waiting for 3 minutes.
Not
It
at all.
won't.
Only one crush, just don't tell them, sorry. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
My name is Lieutenant Colonel Terry Hahn. I've been a part-time resident of this community for about 25 or 30 years. It's my full-time home, part-time because I've traveled a lot for the military. So currently I'm in the Wounded Warriors program, and I have a lot of free time on my hand, and therefore I'm getting more involved in watching what's going on in public affairs. And so that's my reason for being here tonight. I've kind of found out this, and to be honest with you, I was a little shocked and dismayed at this move that's going forward to take what I view as something that's overseen by the voting public, myself, and move it into a position it really doesn't have this oversight, and that bothers me quite a bit. Excuse me. I think the soil erosion is a very important aspect. In fact, when I was in Iraq and I was teaching a provincial reconstruction training about soil erosion, I used an example of this county as the right way to do it. So I feel it's important, and honestly, excuse me, honestly, as a taxpayer, I want to retain the ability to hire somebody or fire them if they're not doing a good job. My fear is that if we move it from something that's accountable to me or my neighbor and move it to an organization that's not accountable, it takes that away. And I really view this as pretty much the governmental equivalent of the tenureship that we see in the public school systems. Now, I'm not saying it's going to create such an inefficiency, or at least I believe tenureship is an inefficiency, but I think we're going down that road. And I think we're slowly, by doing this, we're slowly encroaching upon the rights of the voting public, almost akin to judicial activism. And I think you're taking away my rights as a voting public to oversee this. In this case, it's the drain commissioner, but the soil erosion. I want to have a say on the job he or she does. And if I don't like them, I want to be able to fire them. And what you're doing is you're taking this away from me. And I think that's important. And I understand the reason for this is cost savings. My only argument to that is that, I come from a system that has a lot of red tape. And I think any time that you move a position from somewhere where there is a public oversight to a position where there's no public oversight, I think we might see a cost savings on paper, but I think it might be more of a smoke and mirrors accounting effect, and I don't think there'd be a true cost savings. And honestly, any time I've seen it where there's no oversight, public oversight, I think typically we've seen a lack of efficiency and an increase in the long-term overall government spending. So, I would ask you to consider this for two reasons, my objection to this, and one being I think it infringes upon my right as a voter in this county and in this country. I think we're moving that way, and I strongly am against this and anything that takes away from my oversight as a public watchdog on that. So that's one. And two, I don't think this will, Mr. Bott, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but I don't know if this would, truly, I don't know if this would save as much money as you think, because I just haven't seen non-accountable government work as efficiently as accountable government. And I'm not saying that if we put it under a different boss, I'm not saying he or she be accountable, but I just say typically in our government, when you approach somebody that isn't held accountable by the public, they're just not as responsive. So that's my objection to it, and it's a strong objection as a citizen that I feel I have the right to oversee this. And I just want you to know too that, like I say, when I was in Iraq, I taught this the soil erosion techniques to the Iraqis and told them what a fine example we have. But I feel part of that reason is because I have the right to can them if they're not doing a good job, and you're taking away that right from me. And I strongly feel that's something you should consider. Soil erosion is very, very important to me, both as an environmentalist, and I'm not, I don't want somebody in there who's a zealous, don't mean to offend anybody, tree hugger, because I'm not that way. But I also don't want somebody in there who's not paying attention to me, and maybe might be paying more attention to a big developer. I don't want that. I want them to pay attention to me, the taxpayer, and the citizen, and my neighbors, versus something else. So that's all I have to say, unless you have any questions.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for listening to me. Hope I didn't exceed my 3 minutes there.
Mr. Cooney has
Yes.
With all due respect to Mr. Hahn and Commissioner Chairman Inman, I'd like to point out what I think is a misconception here. The statutory obligation to carry out the soil erosion program rests with the Board of Commissioners, and you can't transfer that responsibility to another elected office. So the final decision as to any soil erosion matter rests with this board, not with the Drain Commissioner.
So are you suggesting that we have the power to overrule the Drain Commissioner's actions as these soil erosion?
It's not a statutory duty of the Drain Commissioner's office.
Okay, thank you. All right. Anyone else wishing to make public comment? Ann?
I'm a short share for us little people. Ann Rogers, 1236 Peninsula Drive, and a county taxpayer. And I'm here representing NEMIAC tonight. I'm on the board, and you've already received a letter that should have been in your packet addressing the fact that we are opposed to the putting this soil erosion and the rest of it into the Code Enforcement Office. And there's a lot of reasons for this. NEMIAC has had as its priority the protection of our resources as long as it's been in existence for over 30 years. And the biggest part of that is protecting the soil and the water, our wetlands, our streams, protecting from runoff, and all of that eventually affects our Grand Traverse Bay. So this is very close to the heart of what NEMIAC is all about. If this was brought up as merely a cost-saving measure, I understand that you could work with the office and work through that to save whatever you think is necessary. But if it's not, then I'm wondering what is driving it. The training for these two different departments is totally different. Somebody needs to understand the soils and have a soil science background and a hydrology background to be able to administer this. And I also see, if it was under the code enforcement, that you're kind of putting the cart before the horse, because without a survey and an understanding of the soils, that has to come before any construction. There could be possible conflict of interest. And I think that it has been highly effective the way it has been working. And I applaud Mr. Inman for making this motion. And I would hope that you would do a lot more study before you go on to do anything like that. So that's the opinion of NEMIAC, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you.
My name is William Bustins. I live at 10329 Elk Lake Road, and I operate the Traverse City At-Risk Boxing Program in town. I usually come to you guys asking you to push my grant application along, so.
Up in June.
Yeah, I hate to be mucking up my future here, but I've got to give you my 2 cents worth on this. I really hope that we can keep things the way they are right now, and I'm saying this from personal experience. I live out on Elk Lake Road, and we were right next to a business there. It was called Williamsburg Receiving Company, Cherry Blossom Make. You know, if you've read the newspaper a little bit, over the last years, you've kind of followed some of their checkered history, but we've lived out there we lived out there our whole life, but for about 8 years, we were consistently overloaded with odors from the cherry processing plant. And boy, we'd call the DEQ, they'd come out and they'd look it over, and boy, I don't know, everything seems to be in compliance. Everything's great here. And for some reason, you know, our nose would be burning. And then, you know, Fred Kessler came out from the health department and said, you know, there's elevated levels of ammonia hydroxide. You should leave your house until the smell's gone, because this is hazardous to your health. And so we were at a dilemma there, but what we found out is the cherry processing plant was over here. There's a farm in between owned by the owner of the cherry processing plant, and then they bought another piece of property on the other side. So they were dumping, there was an underground pipe that was taking industrial cherry waste that had been sitting in a 5 million gallon cesspool for years, and it was going underground, dumping it over on the other farm. So every time the DEQ would come to examine the spot, everything was great besides our nose. So what happened is we found out about this illegal dumping that was going on, and the millions of gallons that went into that and it poured off into Tobico, which of course runs into Lake Michigan, which is kind of a valuable asset for all of us. And we found out that it was being dumped over there. So you know, I talked to Commissioner Inman. He was always really helpful, but I mean, what he could do was, you know, see what you can do, and I mean, but so anyway, we went back and we saw the dumping that happened, and just all the vegetation that had died, the millions of I don't know, units of topsoil that just ran down in this pipe and out into Tobico Swamp. And so I called the drain commissioner, soil control guy, who's an elected official, and said, geez, we've got a heck of a problem here. What could you do? And he came out and examined the thing, and of course smelled it and vomited like everybody else did, but went in, got on the property, filmed the thing, and basically, just to put it in a little nutshell, because you guys probably read the paper, but that gave us the evidence that we needed. So when we took our case in front of Judge Power, they settled, and the problem has been fixed. Now, I don't think the building commission would have got out there and filmed that stuff and did what this public official here did. And I don't know. I just think that, you know, all you guys that run for election are a little bit more charming than the people get appointed. And so I'm just kind of in favor with the way things are, and I hope that we can get enough support here for Commissioner Inman's motion. Thank you. Any questions, or?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I got it on film if you want to see it.
Film at 11.
Mr. Chair, I'll jump in then.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
Lines before you run out of time here. Good evening to you all. My name is Kevin McEllion. It's my pleasure and my privilege to serve as your County Drain Commissioner. As Yogi Berra once said, this is deja vu all over again. The records show that this county, since Warren Verhaeghe's time in 1984, has had to face this issue. All drain commissioners have had to address this issue of separation of duties of the office. In the past, the County Board of Commissioners, in their wisdom, have decided to keep these twin duties together. I hope the Board of Commissioners this Board of Commissioners feels the same way. I feel confident that for more than 7 years now, I have done an excellent job for you and our citizens. These duties are my passion. I also think the voters believe that this pristine county and its glistening waters is protected by the duties of the Soil Erosion Director and the Drain Commissioner. These duties are inextricably linked and woven together, and our citizens want it kept that way. I read the memo in your packets from Dean and Bruce with comments from Bruce. First, I wish to correct 3 things. First of all, Charlevoix County's Drain Commissioner is responsible for the management of soil erosion and sedimentation control in that county. Yes, as the memo says, that office is housed in the Building Code Department, but nonetheless, Drain Commissioner Mark Seeley does administer and enforce that program. In this county, former Drain Commissioner Susan Wilson Brodus gave you a report in 2004 when she sat here, just as I am tonight. She gave you a memo indicating in 83 counties, 28 of them have elected drain commissioners who also serve as erosion control directors. Currently, that's still the case. The other counties designate the soil erosion duties to 8 other various agencies, a variety of them. I won't go into those details now. I'm happy at a later time. For the past several years, there have been, and currently still are, more county drain commissioners serving as erosion control directors than any other type of agency. Secondly, the information presented in the memo in your packet that we spend only about 11% of our hours on drain duties is misleading. Because of the intertwining of drain code and soil erosion functions of our model ordinance, I calculated about 3,000 departmental hours rather than the roughly 560 stated in the memo spent on related drainage functions. That equates to about 50% of our time in the department spent on drainage duties, and the other half would be spent on erosion duties. I'd be happy to sit down with you at a later time and further explain that Appendix J in our annual report, which is provided every year as a tool for me to monitor and manage the efficiencies of our department. Thirdly, in the memo, I don't blame Dean and Bruce for their posture in this matter. You know, if as an administrator I could eliminate a strong elected voice and think that I could save money at the same time, I'd be tempted to do it too. If as a department head during these times of job insecurity, if I could absorb another department, thereby making my departments more secure and more powerful, I'd be tempted to do it too. These feelings and opinions are only natural that we're considering tonight. So I especially take exception with the concept that by absorbing our staff and cross-training and building code and with building cross-training with building code inspectors, that it would result in better service to the public and that would allow permits to be closed and handled in a more efficient manner. I think just the opposite would happen. I think this would end up in a disastrous decision for this county and the voters and the customers as well. Our ordinance is even being used as a model nationwide. The ordinance has complex scientific and environmental provisions for managing stormwater and soil erosion problems in this county. That's the beauty of it. They're inextricably linked. Because we were advised that the ordinance might be enforceable long ago when I first took office, thus allowing aggressive developers to bypass its good intentions, I had to spend more than a year in literally hundreds of discussions and meetings, shepherding the ordinance through 15 municipalities. I was finally able to get 13 of those municipalities to adopt the ordinance and making it enforceable as it is today, and still the model ordinance throughout the state. This ordinance is part of my passion, as you know, as evidenced by that effort. One of our current part-time inspectors is a licensed civil engineer. The other has a master's degree in natural resources. Even as dedicated, experienced, trained, as credentialed as these inspectors are, there's not a week that goes by they don't come to me seeking my advice, my direction, and instruction in soil erosion or drain code matters and in the meaning and interpretation of all applicable environmental laws. Every smallest item overlooked can result in very unfortunate consequences for the public's resources. Consequently, my point is the idea of the building department absorbing my staff and cross-training with other building department duties and thus magically more efficient and more cost-effective honestly mystifies me. It takes all of our concentrated efforts, both my staff and mine, to administer accurately this wonderful ordinance. The ordinance needs the full attention of those who administer and enforce it. Cross-training and thus diluting the abilities of our soil erosion inspectors is unthinkable to me and would be an unfortunate circumstance for our public. I've consistently showed through improved efficiency in our annual report and reduced costs. I suggest those be verified. the improved costs and reduced costs where allowable. I hope that if this board wants to be more efficient and wants to have my department costs cut drastically, that you give me a chance to do so. I'd be willing to sit down and look with you at that. Sit down with me first, rather than just eliminating the position of the soil erosion director. As the easy development sites disappear and the remaining ones are ever more sensitive, quality is just as important as costs. My point is that our informed electorate have made it clear that they do not like the concept of a non-elected county employee administering the soil erosion ordinance in this county. Moreover, they have good reason to feel this way, as evidenced by the many documented public comments I found on the record in drain commissioners of past, as well as letters to the editor and editorials on this in the past. I know that you see the tenured, experienced, proven successful employees as a valuable asset to this county. I would hope that you'd look at my successful experience as your soil erosion director as a valuable asset to the county as well, just as any other county employee experiences are a valuable asset. Every year I have to stand toe-to-toe with some pretty powerful developers and their lawyers and their hired civil engineers. These are powerful personalities who do not necessarily share the tenets of our model ordinance because, believe me, this can be a difficult task to do, to match wits and lock horns with these giants in order to protect our citizens and our cherished resources, especially when I'm only 5'6" tall. I wonder if a building code cross-trained individual would be able to do this. Again, as Yogi Berra would say, my job is 90% civil engineer and the other half is as an attorney. Some of you know that I have spent many a Friday night, many a rainy weekend, many a weeknight inspecting soil erosion incidences that come in. And I receive the calls and I have to immediately get out to wetlands and find out what's going on, who's causing the violations on behalf of these urgent requests from our citizens. There's not a week that goes by that I don't work after hours or on weekends inspecting sites, responding to emails, or reading the many mandated meeting packets, as you are all aware of as well. As I said, these duties are my passion. In addition, this type of after-hours activity and commitment is definitely an important part of the director's duties as far as the public is concerned. I don't think you'll find a cross-trained county employee who would be willing to do this, let alone be able to do it. Relative to the Boardman Dams, Mr. Chairman, I'm wrapping it up here for you. Relative to the Boardman Dams project, to make a few points, the Department of Environmental Quality will require permits on that. As you are well aware, you are the owners of the property. As landowners, you're also required to get Part 91 permits from my office as well. My point is, wouldn't you, as the Board of Commissioners, rather have me, as an already proven and experienced professional, manage this type of important upcoming event on the Boardman Dams? The absorption of the soil erosion director, as proposed in the memo by the building department, would also be legally and technically difficult and would take considerable effort and time to accomplish. 13 municipalities have adopted the individual ordinance as law. Your adoption of the change being considered tonight may also require that the ordinance would again have to be run through those laborious year-long processes to change the ordinance and have it adopted in all 13 municipalities, one at a time. I don't know, perhaps the municipalities who have chosen the ordinance that we now administer for them want to keep it the way it is. The current combined process eliminates the duplication of reviewing plans for the Drain Commissioner's adopted standards, as well as for state and local erosion control compliance. Otherwise, the two officials will have to closely work together to achieve the same current results. The interweaving of these functions, as evidenced by 47 references to the Drain Commissioner in our model ordinance, specific to soil erosion, sedimentation control authority. That ordinance also has companion design guidelines that even contain more such references that shall have to be modified. The efficiency of our current operations and lack of duplication thereof is also evidenced by the new and improved state legislation allowing drain commissioners who also administer soil erosion control laws and maintain court-mandated lake levels to arrange to rename the office known as Water Resources Commissioner, thereby to better reflect the efficient and varied elected duties. To quote the Record Eagle, the job requires as much expertise as it does political independence. The publicly elected drain commissioner will enforce the soil erosion ordinance, which is the county's first line of environmental defense. I have the highest regard for Dean and Bruce. I have the highest respect for all of you individually and as a board. I understand what's driving this and for cost cutting, and agree that in these difficult economic times that we all face these challenges, and I'm willing to have a seat at the table and help you in that regard, as I have in the past. I'm willing to make any changes that you in your wisdom as a board request of me. However, I don't think the voters would think that dividing the duties of the Soil Erosion Program Director and the County Drain Commissioner would be a good change for our citizens and our environment. Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff, thank you so much for your kind consideration and your time listening to my thoughts and beliefs on this important matter.
Commissioner McKelly, can I ask a couple of questions, please?
Certainly.
My understanding is you are the head of, or president of the Drain Commissioner Association. Is that accurate?
That's correct. I'm an officer of the State Association, yes.
And of the drain commissioners in the state association, do you have any idea how many also handle the soil erosion?
As I stated, in short order, I just got notice of this action Friday, so here I am on Wednesday. I couldn't duplicate that report. But I did read that in 2004, Drain Commissioner Susan Wilson Brodus did indicate that there were 28 drain commissioners, and it's probably growing. So at that time, there was 28, and it's growing more. And you'll see, I know of at least 3 I can name right now, Kent County and Washtenaw County, who are now known as Water Resources Commissioner, because most drain commissioners are wearing all 3 of those hats: soil erosion, drain duties, and maintaining court-mandated lake levels. And that's why the new law was acknowledged, so that that would be an elected and efficient duplicate.
How many drain commissioners are there in the state of Michigan, roughly? I don't expect exact detail, just trying to get an idea.
Boy, perhaps 50 of the 83 counties are actually drain commissioners.
Okay.
Some would give it to the road commission. There's a variety. I'd rather get the facts where I'd be happy to do that, Commissioner Henschel.
So some are combined with soil erosion, some are not?
Of the drain commissioners, as I indicated, roughly in 2004, 28 drain commissioners were soil erosion directors as well.
Okay.
And I believe that number is growing. I'd be happy to do a thorough research and update you on that.
Don't need one, just,
okay.
Just the talk you gave, which was really good and very detailed. I get you're a detail-oriented person. I appreciate that.
Well, there's a lot of information.
Right.
It's important
The impression I got was that this is kind of an inseparable job, but in reality, about half or less actually have the job combined, right? Is that what
half or less?
Less than half of the drain commissioners in Michigan are actually the soil erosion administration as well?
I wouldn't want to speculate until I could do further research on the numbers again. But
you would agree that some are, some aren't?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, so it's not an inseparable job. I just wanted to have that
Absolutely.
understanding.
As your council has advised, this is your decision on where you place those duties.
Okay.
Yeah.
You have an office, right?
Yes, sir.
Someone answers the phone?
Yes.
And the construction code also has someone answers the phone?
Yes.
Certainly. How many calls a day do you get?
I could look at those records as well. I don't have it on the top of my
10?
head. It varies with season. If you look at the annual report, you'll see that I have a monthly indicator of how many permits we do. So that's how I do my staffing plan. And in the season that we're not as busy, we have other special tasks right now that, because we're so busy during the busy times, we can't get to them. So the staff is always busy.
Always, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for efficiencies. If someone's got someone at a desk and someone else does, maybe they can overlap and and be more efficient. That's what I'm looking for.
And you'll see that's why we have cut costs, reduced staff drastically. There's never, the soil erosion inspectors are 2 part-time inspectors. There's never 2 those part-time inspectors on duty at the same time because of, the economy doesn't allow it now. Everyone's cutting costs.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Thomas?
Dean, both these departments are both, what was the word again?
Enterprise fund.
Enterprise fund?
No, the Drain Commission, including the soil erosion piece, are a department within the general fund, which is entirely governmental.
Right.
And the construction code activities are in a standalone fund that is an enterprise fund.
I thought it was, so I'm wrong.
Any more questions for Mr. Malcolm? Okay. Thank you,
do.
Kim. Oh, you do? Go ahead.
Yeah. Many times we hear concerns from developers of the process to go through and be able to get permits. And I'm just wondering if there's not a way to look at from your department as to how to make that a better process, not for just Drain Commission, but also soil erosion, but also the Construction Code Division, and how you might be able to look at, and whether or not we might even look at combining those 2 offices within so that we have one common secretary to be able to answer the phones to those. And I'm just wondering if you would be willing to look at some of that to be able to determine whether or not you could become more efficient and more efficient for the contractors out there. I think that's my concern is we are down in how we're going to be able to develop homes and commercial establishments, but I think that that's a complaint I hear every time I go to a Chamber of Commerce dinner or an event or something like that the business community says that it's too encumbersome for us to be able to get permits. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to be able to look at it to be able to reduce some of that.
Absolutely. I'm willing to briefly try to answer your question. I wanted to respond to all the citizens' concerns. I don't think the chair will tolerate that time. But I do want to directly answer your question about efficiencies. Yes, I'm willing to look at that. And I've got one short story. That was the beauty of Walt Disney. They're an exemplary example in customer service. And his philosophy was to look at processes and to change, as Commissioner Henschel had mentioned, he wants to break it and kind of look at different things. Disney felt that way, but you have to look at if it's a reversible decision. So improve, don't blame the people, look at the process, and if the process can change and if it's reversible. But I'm concerned, the citizens had made it known that they want this elected, they want it independent, but the processes that you're mentioning, we're always scrutinizing, and if it's reversible. I mean, the law allows us 30 days to give a permit. We average less than 10 days. So these are all valid concerns. We're not here to hinder development. As I say, it's our job to keep our citizens legal with all applicable environmental laws that we are authorized to administer.
Commissioner Felice?
Kevin, Mr. Klaus stated that a homeowner can pull a permit for $113. The same permit by a commercial firm costs $275. Is that true?
The quickest analogy that comes to my mind is that's what's been legislated. That's in the ordinance. The ordinance differentiates between commercial properties versus residential properties. And the only definition on record, the DEQ defines residential as owner-occupied. It's as simple as that. It's not we don't write the laws. This is the same ordinance we inherited. I just sheep-herded it and got it adopted at each municipality. But I want to answer your question, yes, that's what the ordinance currently reads. And here's the common sense application. The owner of a property really takes care of their project and their property. Commercial properties or somebody, there's a difference of stewardship for the property. And also lately, we've had to require sureties, which is another word for a performance bond on a property. In this economy, we see a lot of people abandoning their projects, and ultimately, then the county is liable to make sure the resources are not harmed, or the neighbors are not harmed by either soils or excessive flood damage, et cetera. So, did I answer your question?
No, because I couldn't buy your explanation, and I think you don't understand or something.
No,
you're talking commercial property versus residential property. That I understand. That wasn't what Mr. Klaus said. He's talking about building a residential home, and that's what it is. It's not a commercial piece of property, it's a residential home. And if the homeowner applies, it's 113. If the builder, regardless of who it is, applies, it's 275. Now, like his comment, here I am, an experienced firm and individual. It stands from my point of business and in my business, when we have a commercial customer, if you will, they're normally much more knowledgeable in respect to the equipment I sell, where perhaps a homeowner doesn't have a clue. So you take the homeowner and you kind of coach them and you help them along, which is what everybody should do. But it takes time. Time costs money. So if the drain commissioner's office is coaching or helping homeowners, and you're more than double charging a builder on the same residential deal, that doesn't compute in my mind.
again, the question is two residential, for the sake of simplifying the discussion, let's say we're building two different single-family homes. One is owner-occupied, and the other is what we'll call a spec home, a commercial enterprise. And we found in this community that they're being handled differently. And we have to spend more time on spec homes, commercial enterprises, rather than the residential homes. We have to constantly inspect these sites. They're not complying. The neighbors are complaining. They're not being, and we've got to be fair. I don't want, we've got to be consistently fair across the board. So the spec home people were saying, how come I got to do this and the other guy doesn't? They're allowed to pollute, et cetera. So hopefully, again, that distinguishes your question.
I still don't buy your argument, and I wished you would listen.
I did. Okay.
The question is, and I'm not talking commercial enterprise, I'm talking you hiring a contractor to build you a home, okay? Now, is that commercial or is that not commercial? I submit to you, it's a residential home.
I agree.
Okay, so a person living in the home next door that applies for the same permit pays 113, a house that's soon to be occupied by you has to pay 275, and you know, the contractors, he hands the money across, but who pays the 275? You are. Now, to me, that isn't fair. That's a double standard. Would you agree? I just want an answer. Would you agree?
I really would like to discuss that further with you. This is much more complicated, and I've taken enough of the board's
No,
time.
I don't think it's that complicated, Kevin.
Mr. Thomas?
That's a separate issue, and we should handle that by itself.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Do you have anything more anybody have anything more for Kevin?
No.
All right, go ahead.
You know, I was going to vote to not change. And after listening, you know, I mean, and listen to the input from the public, I was going to continue to vote to not change. And then when I listened to you, something just kind of broke through that really bothered me. And it's the I'm not going to let the man build something. I'm not going to let developers come in and destroy the pristine, you know, land that we have. This is operating under the assumption that a developer wants to, you know, a developer doesn't want to wreck our environment.
He wants it to be a nice environment so he can sell more homes in that environment. And I'll tell you, it reminded me, right now I have a vote. I said earlier, I said I like the idea of the voters being able to boot somebody if they don't like what they're hearing, or if they don't like what they're seeing. And right now, I guess I have a vote, and I've changed. I'm with you on this, Commissioner Fleece.
But you're talking about a different issue.
No, I'm talking about the same.
Yes, you are.
Yes,
I'm done with Kevin.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
My pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
Well, honestly, we're still in public comment. Is there anyone else who wishes to make public comment on this specific issue? Okay, if not, we'll close that, and go ahead, sir.
Well, I guess, I still firmly believe that this would better be handled through construction code as far as the soil erosion piece of it. One of the problems that I have with the way it works right now is I understand Kevin is an elected official, but I also can't set his hours. So I hear from developers, from contractors continuously that they call his office, they can't get a hold of him. They can't get calls back for extended lengths of time. That's the only piece of that I'm going to get into at this point. The one thing I can tell you, if you want to talk about how long it takes to run an ordinance, I just did this. It doesn't take a year to get an amended ordinance through the units in this county if you make the ordinance so it's easy to read and people can understand it.
All right, any other discussion by the board on this issue? Everybody understand the motion?
Repeat it.
Okay, you want to read the motion, please?
I'm pretty sure I have it. It's continue the drain commissioner to be, continue to have the drain commissioner oversee the soil erosion and have the drain commissioner's salary be frozen at the current rate for 2013.
All right, by roll call, please.
Lemkool,
Yes.
Inman,
Yes.
Henschel,
No.
Gilman,
No.
Fleece,
No.
Wheelock,
No.
Thomas,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Chairman Richardson.
No. Okay, motion fails.
5-4.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we separate the duties of the drain commissioner, allow the drain commissioner to retain the statutory duties of a drain commissioner, and we transfer the soil erosion duties to the code department.
Could I make a suggestion that you just trim that down to just say to make the motion, you're just going to transfer the soil erosion duties to the construction code office? And could you put an effective date on it as well?
Well, that was,
Effective,
yeah, I would support the motion, but I wanted to talk to Dean about the effective date because he's met with Bruce about, obviously, we can't, even if we remove this duty and responsibility, then therefore it makes some sense to reduce the drain commissioner's salary of $76,640 in salary and benefits.
That isn't something we have to do.
But that's nothing we can't reduce that in this year.
Nope.
No, that's true.
So the point is we're going to pay that salary even if we make the change immediately. So I wanted to know what Dean's recommendation would be about changing it. Dean and Jen's?
Change it to the end of the year, at the end of the term.
End of the
It's the only
term.
time you
Yeah,
can
you'd have
do
to
it.
change it at the end of the...
No,
No, I wouldn't be in
I
agreement
can't
with
reduce,
that.
I can't reduce his salary.
You
but I
can't
can
reduce
change
the
his-
salary for the balance of 2012.
When would
and-
you recommend making the change to the construction code office?
We had actually discussed that, had not had an opportunity to shore that up with Jen, but I would think that May 1st would be my recommendation.
I would
Do
go
it
along
sooner
with
rather
the-
than later.
Wait a minute, you got to run again this year, right?
Yes.
For 2012. The state law says you can't reduce the salary during the...
They're not going to.
We're not
We're not
reducing
reducing
his
the salary, we're
responsibility.
talking about when we're going, if the motion's going to be made on the changing the soil erosion, I'm just saying, what's the effective date on the motion?
I would go along with the interim administrators.
Okay, so you want to restate your motion then, Larry?
Yes, my motion is to transfer the soil erosion duties to the code office effective May 1st.
And the reason is so that we have time to evaluate, a period of time to evaluate before we put the 2013 budget together. So yes, May 1st.
May
I would
1st.
support that.
Okay, so I have a motion by Flees, support by Wheelock. Does everybody understand the motion?
Yeah.
We need any more discussion, or I think we talked about this enough?
One more quick public comment.
Sir, we've already had taken public comment on this issue. Thank you very much. By roll call, please.
Inman,
No.
Henschel.
Yeah.
Gilman,
Yes.
Flees,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Yes.
Thomas,
I'm going to vote yes because to me, it's not that big of a deal, so.
Max
yes.
Bauer,
No.
Lemkool,
No.
Chairman Richardson.
Yes.
What you do about
Okay,
nothing.
motion passes. Okay, that takes us to the animal control information. Mr. Fleece, that you requested?
To animal control?
Me
Yes.
too. I'm going with you.
Yes, I was unable to attend the meeting last Wednesday, so I asked that this be deferred until tonight. The incident we recently had down in Fife Lake involving the horses greatly disturbs me, and this board, in my opinion, has a duty to the citizens of Grand Traverse County and to the animals of Grand Traverse County not to have to starve to death, I guess, to put it bluntly. And my suggestion is, at first I thought, well, perhaps we should transfer the animal control to the Sheriff's Department. And in the old days, a lot of the Sheriff's Departments did handle the Animal Control Division. But I've talked with the Sheriff. He's not in favor of that. The Health Department, it's apparently under Fred with Tom. Tom, you're in charge of that particular Animal Control Division. And so what I would like to ask the Health Department is to come up with a plan to this board and present it to the board that would outline what the deficiencies that are currently occurring that caused this situation. You know, for a citizen to call in early October and nothing was done, for a deputy to ask for an animal control officer, I believe it was on January 8th, I don't have the reports with me tonight, on January 8th, and to be told by Central Dispatch that they don't work weekends, in my opinion, is deplorable. And I submit to you, Fred and Tom, if a deputy sheriff cannot get an animal control officer to come to the scene of wherever they're requesting it for whatever purpose, a citizen in Grand Traverse County doesn't stand a chance. Recently, after this issue came to light, your yearly report came out, and I read that very carefully, particularly the part on animal control. And I really respectfully have to disagree with what was in that report. And in essence, what it says, I'm not going to read it, but in essence it says, if there's a loose dog complaint, you call animal control, they'll come out and they'll take care of the situation. My wife, when she read this report, got so angry, I thought she'd want to come down tonight. But let me tell you about a personal experience I had. We had two elderly ladies living 2 doors down, and I live out on Norton Road in the country, so they're a quarter mile from me. 2 elderly ladies in a home by themselves. There's 2 German shepherds running the neighborhood. And I have shepherds. I've had shepherds for 43 years. And I knew who owned the dogs and everything. And my first impulse was to step out the door, take care of the problem, and bury him. But no, I did what I thought was the right thing. I picked up the phone and I called Animal Control, and a lady told me, we don't come out and get dogs. If you want to get a dog, you can take a picture of it. And I said, ma'am, why? I was in law enforcement for 29 years, so I'm a little familiar with what the court requires for civil infractions and/or misdemeanors or felonies. I said, ma'am, why would I want to take a picture of a dog running at large so that we can verify it? I says, you have my testimony. I'll verify the dog was running at large. She said, well, we don't do it that way. You can take a picture, or if you want, we'll bring you a live trap. And Fred, I want you to stop and think about this. 2 shepherds, they're full-size shepherds, they're running loose. She says, I'll bring you a live trap. Out comes, I said, well, I guess that's my option. Because I thought, sure as the devil, if I shoot him, I'll get prosecuted. So out comes Animal Control, I don't know, a couple hours later, they drop off the thing. My wife calls me, I come home, I bait the live trap, and in 20 minutes, I had the shepherd, one of them. If I'd have had 2 live traps, I'd have had both of them. But the moral to the story was, I then called them, so they come back out and they pick up the dog. And then they issued tickets for dog at large, because obviously it's at large, it's in my backyard. And I own acreage, I don't own a city lot or anything. But these dogs just ran rampant in the neighborhood, and I couldn't get any action. And I don't think I was a county commissioner then, so that didn't have anything to do with it. But like I said earlier, if a deputy can't get an animal control officer to take care of a situation or come out and help them, a citizen like myself doesn't stand a chance. So, Tom, if you could prepare that report for this board, whatever the deficiencies are, I think we have to the board has to take a serious look at that so we can cure this situation. And I understand the sheriff not wanting to have that responsibility too, because that's kind of a separate deal, and I don't think the health department probably has done a bad job, don't get me wrong, but I think you have some deficiencies that perhaps if we're addressed to this board, we'll take care of. Thank you.
I'd like to advise the board of some new information. I got a call from Dr. David Burke, who is on the board of directors of I believe it's the Humane Society. And a young lady had spoke for public comment and mentioned that they had an arrangement with Leelanau County for the taking of animals. And he did indicate that they had a discussion previously, and it didn't work out. But they have since, in his words, indicated to me that they have a different perspective now, and they would like to talk with whoever it would be, Dean or Fred or whoever, that they would like to talk to you about the same arrangement that they have with Leelanau County. They would like to install in Grand Traverse County. So I just wanted to bring you that message, and I have the phone number for this David Burke. I can give it to you after the meeting.
Sonny?
It's probably been 8-10 years ago, we had this discussion about animal control once before, and we had a lot of discussion about eliminating the dog catcher. And we filled the hallway, this room, and a few other things. You know, everyone that had ever applied for a kennel license had to speak, and one thing after the other. But I think we all came away from that discussion with the idea that we needed to retain an animal control division, but we did not believe it was appropriate to put it in the sheriff's department. Because one of the concerns that we always have when we talk about animal control and the sheriff's department is what do you do with that injured dog or stray dog? If the deputy arrives there, I'm not going to take an injured or a stray dog and put it in the backseat of a patrol car. Because then the next thing I know is, if I'm lucky, I get to the shelter and drop it off, I may or may not get a chance to even begin to clean the back of my patrol car. And then I've got some young lady in an auto accident, and I've got to have her sit in the back of the car while we wait for a wrecker or whatever, and I have this rather large pile of dog doo-doo sitting on the seat. So I think the one thing that's absolutely essential is to realize that whether animal control is with the health department, with the sheriff's department, we will not be expecting our deputies to do animal control service. At least that's my opinion.
That's it.
But the animal control officer is deputized, right, Sheriff?
No.
Huh?
No.
As a special, as animal control.
Yeah, he has no,
How would it be to deputize him?
then what are you gonna do? And have him write speeding tickets too?
No. Have a
When
written
he's
dog ticket.
deputy, when he's a special, when he's a regular deputized officer, he can do any, and enforce any law of the state of Michigan.
No, call him a special deputy
Barney Five.
for dog doo-doo and stuff.
God.
Did you want to propose any action, or did you just?
No, I
wanna
just,
talk about it?
but I would like one more thing for the health department to consider in their
I mean, do you want-
report.
do you want anybody from the health department to address this now, or?
Well, sure, they can, I'd be glad to listen to anything they have to say.
I mean, I don't know if they want to say anything. I mean, that's Fred.
Fred's always got something to say.
I don't know, what the heck?
It's early, it's not even 10 o'clock
It's only been 2 hours and 40
yet.
minutes.
What cat licenses, Fred?
Well, this is interesting news, though, that Larry just said.
Yeah,
because this is
Fred.
Fred Kiesler,
Thank
Health
you.
Department.
Tom Buss, Environmental Health Manager and Animal Control Manager.
I'm not going to be able to answer your whole thing tonight, Larry, but one of the things is that since 2006, we had the arrangement the Sheriff's Department would do the animal abuse, animal neglect arrangement with, because we lost, we were at 3 officers plus a trustee. When I came here in 92, and then we went down to 2 people in 94. And we never was able to restore that when we went to a 3-year license and license being sold by vets. And we used to get some state money, and we don't. So we have 2 people, and about half of one person's time is spent doing kennel duty. That's cleaning the kennels, doing the pickup of the dogs. There's people who are claiming their dogs that they want, giving them to agencies such as the Trailland Humane Society and HANDS and another organization that take out dogs that are adopted out, which majority of dogs are either picked up by their owners or are adopted out. And then, of course, we discussed the euthanizing is about 14%. Many of those are injured dogs or dogs that just would be a liability to have them go to adopt out. And the agencies won't take those anyway, because some of them are pit bulls that have obviously been used for fighting dogs and are just not socialized. A liability for an agency to adopt out. If it's in the health department, it's going to be a health department function. And the statute says very clearly that all dog bites have to be investigated, quarantine the animal if it's a dog or a cat that could have been vaccinated. And that means that we have close to 200 bites a year. And these are bites that went through the emergency room or urgent care. These aren't just a nip. These are where it was serious enough. And when you leave a person and a half for the 5-day working week to do just the kennel, do the kennel, well, I mean, the 2 people do the kennel duties, that takes up half of one person a week, and do the bite investigations, pick up what loose dogs they can, I got the whole list of their,
Well, injured dogs, dog quarantine, dangerous dogs, kennel inspections, adoptions of dogs to pet rescue groups, release, redemption of dogs to owners, collection of fees, tickets and enforcement, court time, setting traps, wild animal calls, such as the bear in Traverse City we had this past summer, animal care, and Fred talked about that being about a half FTE. So, there's two people doing those services.
and also, as we get calls on exotic animals, we've had snakes behind buildings, and we had a large, like cougars or panthers that people had as pets and turned into a problem. We had a situation where we had a man with Alzheimer's, and there was a bunch of loose monkeys, and they kept biting him, and it was kind of got into an elderly abuse situation and all this stuff. So we, in 2006, let the Sheriff's Department take on the duty of the animal abuse. And yes, they did call that Saturday, and yes, we were told, unless it was an emergency, and I guess emergency is a relative term, we're not to authorize overtime for that. So, and quite frankly, if it's a true abuse neglect situation, it's a criminal act, and these people cannot arrest, and they can be in an advisory capacity.
It's my understanding, Commissioner Fleece, that when the call was made to find out if they could find the state veterinarian to euthanize some animals. That was the reason that Ed was called, I believe, was to see if he had a contact number for the veterinarian.
Well, the official police report says the deputy wanted an animal control officer to respond.
That's correct.
And Central said
right.
They don't work weekends. And that's exactly my point of this whole conversation is, and I understand that one person or 1.5 people, I fully understand that 2 people couldn't possibly do this job. And I really would like you to think about it, because, those animals can't talk for themselves. That's our responsibility. We have to take care of them. And to let an animal starve to death, had the officer, or the animal control officer in October, in my opinion, said there's something wrong here, we need to get somebody out here, get a veterinarian out here, I would suggest to you, when you're putting your proposal together, that perhaps animal control officers receive some investigation training. The Sheriff's Department has some very able trainers. They go through this stuff every year. Perhaps the animal control could learn the proper way to do an investigation, do a report that would go to the prosecutor. If it's something that needs immediate action, like in October, he could have requested a Sheriff's Department employee come out and, take some action. If the homeowner is in the way, arrest him. The Sheriff's Department knows what they can do and what they can't do. The officers are well-trained, and I think we need to train our animal control officers a little more, because I think they're really fighting an uphill battle, and I don't think there's enough of them.
But I don't think, and I think the sheriff is here, I don't think this is a sheriff health department issue. I mean, there's like a disagreement or anything like that.
Oh, no, it isn't.
Yeah, well, that's kind of what I
No, what I'm
referring.
saying is, we could utilize the sheriff's officers, he has training officers, to train perhaps over the course, not tomorrow, but in the course of things, when they have a training class, train the animal control officers, and it's so short, sweet, and simple.
You got a solution.
I mean, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to do that, it really doesn't. Because I've never met a police officer yet that was a brain surgeon, and they managed to get the reports give them to Mr. Cooney. He reads them, yep, the elements of the law are either there or they're not. If they are, the prosecutor's office will authorize a warrant. If it's something, if it's a misdemeanor committed in your presence or a felony, you absolutely, the sheriff though, and it has to be a deputy, could make an arrest. But they would arrive at the animal control officer's request.
Commissioner Gilman.
I've got a solution. I think our problem, again, you're absolutely right. It is not whether it's a law enforcement or a health department issue. It's a staffing issue. You just plain don't have enough people.
Right.
And obviously, we as a board we say we can't afford to send any more. However, I think there is a solution. And I could, if I could get some advice from our council, could we, I mean, we have multiple animal advocacy groups in town here. Could we deputize volunteers and have them operate under some kind of bond to protect the county's interests in the event something bad happens in their activities? But I mean, is that something that would be doable, legal?
It's probably doable. I'm not sure that it's advisable from a training standpoint. Maybe, you know, I think that would be a policy decision.
The reason I say this is because in a temporary situation, like you said, well, we're not coming out here on the weekend because, you know, our guy's reached his full time already, or, you know, we don't have enough people, or somebody's on the other side of the county. If we could have a call to an animal advocacy group, and I can tell you there are some of them who would probably be very happy to be a part of it. Give them some authority, or at least the voice of the county. I think it would be an appropriate way of handling this without incurring a lot of expense to the taxpayer to increase our helping in this situation.
Commissioner Wheeler?
I guess the comment that I have, and I've read through all kinds of notes about this project, but where I'm really confused, it's not the Saturday night when the deputy calls, because from the time the sheriff's department called until the deputy got there was a very short time, and then he contacts Central Dispatch for an animal control officer. That horse did not starve to death on Saturday afternoon. What happened prior to that Saturday afternoon? You know, were there calls made to animal control? Were there calls made to Central Dispatch? That's where, I think if there's a problem, that's where the problem is. It's not the fact that the deputy arrived out there and he called for an animal control officer and there was not an animal control officer available. You know, okay, it's a weekend, now we have to figure out what we can do. But the problem to me, and that jumps right out at me, is what happened before Saturday afternoon when that deputy got there? And I don't know the answer to that. And I've read through all different kinds of reports, and I don't find anything that tells me what happened before Saturday afternoon when Paul Postal went, right? I think.
Yeah.
You know, so between the time Central Dispatch contacted the Sheriff's Department and Paul went out there was a very short time frame. My problem is, what happened before that time?
Early October, and like I said, I read the report, I forget the date, but it's like, I want to say the 6th or the 8th of October. A call goes to animal control, they respond.
October 4th.
Okay, 4th.
The 5th they were there.
Yeah, he looks at the animals. I don't know what kind of training he's got. But you know, I've been around farm animals my whole life. And it's kind of like a human. When they came out of Dachau, there was no doubt in anybody's mind that those people had been starved to death. You know? Same with a horse. You look at a horse, you can count their hip bones, their ribs. It's pretty evident. And what I said earlier was, had someone on October 4th done something, those horses probably would all be alive today. A 2-year-old horse, you know, there's a pecking order in horses. A 2-year-old horse, he doesn't get to eat first, or eat, and neither does the 19-year-old. That's the two they had to euthanize. The pecking order is the strong and the healthiest, or the leaders, get to eat. And I think we just, we need, you need to just put something together that we can respond if we had X amount. And I think there's a real need for training.
But the problem is, between October 4th and whatever the date was when Paul went out there, there was a time here that something should have been done. That's where we dropped the ball. It wasn't we dropped the ball when Paul Postle went out there and called for an animal control officer and he was told Saturday that they don't work weekends. We didn't drop the ball there, you know. We dropped the ball, or somebody dropped the ball between October 4th and the time we got to there.
My niece, who works for me, continued to tell me last fall that her friend, who apparently, or an acquaintance, is the complainant, kept telling her about how these horses were being starved. And I probably should have picked up the phone and called Tom and said, Tom, could you go out and look into this, because there's some, and see, that doesn't appear officially anyplace, but I do believe that that lady, the complainant, made some calls that weren't documented. You know, had she called Central?
Well, that's where the ball got
easy. You can listen to the tapes and you can document it. But if she called who knows who, there's no documentation. And that's what happened to the horses. And that's what we got to stop.
Dan, did you have something you wanted to add?
I just wanted to say, I think we're hearing what you're saying. We'll work to see what we can do in terms of addressing the staffing issues, but it will come back and end up being a budget discussion that we'll have with you. And, you know, I don't know that this needs to wait until we put the next year's budget together, but we will look at what we can do here in terms of options for on-call employees. But in Fred's defense, you know, he has a limited amount of resources to work with, and he's, you know, dependent on a county appropriation to fund his operation as well. So, but I think we're hearing that you want us to look at the staffing and see what we can do.
You know, I don't necessarily think that we have to look at the staffing, but I would like us to have a report back from Tom and Fred as to how are we going to prevent this from happening the next time. We've already had that happen. It's over, it's done with. But what is it going to take for us to be able to look at it, to be able to do a SWOT analysis, figure out what went wrong, how do we correct it, and what do we do so it doesn't happen again? I think that's the key that we have to look at. Rather than looking at, it may be a staffing thing, we don't know that. But I think, you know, if you guys could come together with the animal control officer and maybe sit down with the sheriff and say, okay, what could we have done? How can we do it better? How can we make sure it doesn't happen again?
Commissioner Mascon?
I don't think it's a staffing issue. I think it's a training issue. I think if someone had gone out October 4th, and, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Fleece. I know, I recognize a starving horse when I see one. And I used to own a horse. I think that whoever took a look October 4th apparently didn't know what they were looking at. And that concerns me.
What I have here, and I think if we can wrap this up, is that Dean is going to get with Fred Kiesler and come up with some sort of a report and recommendation on how to, you know, maybe avoid a recurrence of these, you know, really very unhappy events, okay? And that may or may not include, you know, requests for more money. So, can we wrap it up with that?
Just one more comment, Dean. When I was younger, I had a very vile temper.
Really?
No. Now that I'm older, I've tempered a lot. But let me tell you, and what I'm most fearful of, seriously, is I realize it's a budgetary, but if something happened to another animal, such as what we experienced before the 2013 budget kicked in, I think you would probably see my past temper.
Your old style?
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with what Commissioner Richardson recommended. It seems like if Fred, Tom, myself, and the sheriff can get together and we can just, you know, put our heads together and come up with a solution avoid this or prevent this going
Yeah,
forward. Give us that opportunity.
Thank you.
And one last point on thinking outside the box. Frankly, I think a lot of the animal advocacy people around here could train our people better.
Can I make a comment, please?
Certainly.
Well, you know, this is a public forum, and at any time there's an issue that comes up, we look into it, and we're in the process of doing that and to deal with it, and we do have recommendations we're working on. But I don't want to talk about something that's half-cooked and only partially investigated, and so I'm sitting here quietly because I don't, because of that given, you know, and you have to understand from a department head's viewpoint, we're in that position sometimes where it can be involved anything from union contract issues to personnel issues to what agreements we have in our policies and policies that need to be reviewed. And so, no, I don't have a problem with us getting back with you and coming with recommendations. I would like to say, though, is that two things. Is that one, is the bad guy is the person who is the perpetrator, not the agencies, you know, and things happen. And the other thing is that Ed, who responded there in October, he did an evaluation, and I mean, I can only go by what he tells me, and what I read his report is there was food and water at the time. There were fresh horse droppings, meaning they were eating and passing. So it did not look like a starvation situation then. Now, that's his opinion, okay? But we do send animal control people to training as a statewide organization for animal control people. They get training on these types of issues such as animal neglect and abuse. So it isn't like they're working in a total vacuum. And before he worked there, he worked in an animal rescue system and used to nurse back animals back to life that used to be at the zoo here. So I think that out of fairness is that, you know, in those 90 days, about between October and January, things definitely took a turn to the worse. In hindsight, we can think of a lot of things that could have been done. But it is. And I'm a dog, horse, and cat owner myself, and it is really bothersome to anybody to see a situation like that. So I'll get back with you if you...
You know, somebody told me, and maybe it was Sonny, but he says, over the years, I've learned one thing. People are very passionate about their animals. I've got more knots on my head over that complaint than I have all the other years I've sat on the commission regarding whatever went on. My phone number's listed, and I've had a lot of calls.
Understood.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to discussing this further in the future. Certainly. And anyone else who would also like to comment on this issue?
My name is Jennifer Isbell, and I'm the editor and publisher of Pet Friends Magazine. And I too was curious. I kept hearing in the media, well, not hearing, they kept saying that, you know, nothing was done in October when Cora first complained of this. And I don't know Ed personally, but I've met him a couple times, and knowing how hard he works to save dogs, it just didn't sound like Ed. So I called Tom, I think, and I asked for a fax. And Ed did indeed go out there, and I'm going to read it to you because I only have one copy. I can't give it to her. It was on October 4th, and it says, Cora Wilson, and that's Dana Round's neighbor. Wilson reports a horse that is very thin and is now being covered up from view with a blanket. The horse is not in alarming condition. It is probably a 3 on a scale, and I have a horse scale here, which was also given to me by Animal Control, and a 3 is thin, a 2 is very thin, and a 1 is poor. It says food available, and hay, In field, horses not feeding at time of visit. It said something about a vet supposedly treating a horse for unknown health problems. And so I just wanted to bring it up that something, Ed did go out there, but you were talking about deputizing. Even if Ed would have given the horse a 1, which is poor, what could he have done besides write a citation? Dana Round, if you look on your own county website, it has 34 citations. I don't think getting a citation from us, being the county, really she gave a crap about, because it was just another one. So repeat offenses really needs to be taken into consideration. If somebody continually has, and she has horse problems, dog problems, if you look on the website, for years and years. So it's kind of a thing where you should look and say, okay, if somebody has 5 citations, should we allow them to keep animals? Should we do something along those lines? I almost kind of think that it was a good thing that it happened on a weekend in January, I believe. That was a weekend, because the sheriff had to come out, and he's the only one that actually could have done anything, as far as what I know. Like I said, Ed can write a citation, but if he's not deputized, what else could he have done? Except maybe, I don't know what the procedure is, if he could have moved it up the line to the sheriff and let him know about that. So I just want to let you know that, Ed did go out there in October and did what he could about that. The other thing, I looked on your animal control supervisor job description, and as far as what I know, I believe Tom is the acting supervisor after Ed got demoted. And I have nothing against Tom, and I've worked with him quite well over the past year, but it does not look like he is qualified to be an animal control supervisor. There are all kinds of certifications on here. So I think that's a really big problem, is that you need an actual animal control supervisor, and it should be a deputized position, because otherwise what good is that person other than writing tickets? And like I said, that's my opinion, but from, reading as much information as I can from your own county website and what the job is supposed to entail, I just don't see where Tom or Fred meet the qualifications of animal control officer certification. They're supposed to know animal tranquilizer, have a euthanasia certification. There's just a whole list, you can check on your own website. And I found your idea interesting as far as volunteers helping out, but the only problem with that is I did a FOIA on the investigation of the horse case, and there was a point in the investigation with Postal where Dana Round threatened Cora Wilson's life right in front of the cop. And I'm not sure if that's anything any of us volunteers want to get involved in, because horse abusers and dog abusers are not usually nice people. It's like a symptom of the rest of their life, other areas they have problems in. So I think that's better left to law enforcement. And like I said earlier, I think the repeat offender situation is really bad. It would be interesting to know if you can look in, I don't know how your computerized records are in your animal control division, but if you could see how many of the people you've given citations to in the last 2 years are repeat offenders, my guess would be probably 70 or 80%. And I don't know if you can find that information out, but I think that's part of the problem right there. Okay. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks.
Yes, please.
My name's Linda Freet. My address is 10075 Blackman Road in Kingsley. I am also a board member of Horse North Rescue and have 3 of the horses at our rescue farm. Not as a board member, this is horrific. This should have never gotten this far, as you said. This is not the first time this has happened. It happened a couple years ago on Walton Road. We called animal control and nothing, they couldn't do anything. Called Shante Bouillon and he came and put down one of the horses. And then Tanya Mulvey came and threatened the woman to make her life miserable if she didn't let her take the other one. That was because of no education. They were told when they bought the horse, they only eat a flake of hay a day. Well, you have a 1,000-pound horse, they need a lot more than a flake. If animal control could have intervened on that instance, those horses would have never died if animal control had the education. We took these 5 flake horses in. There were 5 live horses. We got 3, Chuck Hill took 2. The 3 of them that we have are flourishing, they're doing well, they're gaining. It's a long process. We have had a tremendous support of the community. Thank you so much. We did not charge the county and will not charge the county for this. We are a nonprofit 5013C and are publicly offering our assistance to animal control in the Sheriff's Department. Our job is prevention and cure. That's what we want. We don't want to see these horses laying on the ground. We want to get there before that. There are hay banks available through the Michigan Horse Welfare Coalition that they could have gotten help. And the horse community is so big that if she needed help, she could have asked and she would have gotten it. I personally would have taken a round bale over to her. But their history and their reputation, they're not going to ask. But the rescue is available to any officer, any animal control officer at any time. We have 7 board members and we have several volunteers. We do inspections. We will train your officers. We will teach them how to score. In the defense of the animal control officer that went out in October, I understand Dana Round had a pasture. Well, they've been eating pasture. And if you look at the hoof lines, you can see no nutrition, no nutrition. You can see where spring and summer was. And in October, they're probably still got a little bit of weight on them. But January 7th, that's when the horses were taken. 2 of them had to be put down because they didn't have food. There may have been hay on the premises, and there may have been water, but it was frozen. And the hay may have just gotten there. Obviously, these horses, when we got them, they drank so much water, we just kept a day and a half of water just constantly. 16 5-gallon buckets, we just couldn't keep them full. And they ate, and they ate. They were eating just the 3 we had were eating 7 bales of hay a day. And that's not good hay, because you can't give them nutritional hay because they're going to colic. They have sand and worms in them. It's such a slow process. And so you slowly deworm them, you slowly sand clear them, and now they're finally gaining weight. And sorry, it just really upsets me that it got this far. And from what I understand, Cora had called after October. I don't know if she got through to anybody. I'm sure she left messages. She has detailed information. The ball was dropped. We can't let it happen anymore. And it's not just horses. I hear just dogs, animal control for dogs, cats, and now we've got horses in there, but it's all animals. And I can guarantee you that any fair person on the fair board that does the chicken barn or whatever, it's all animals that animal control has to cover. And one person cannot do that. And that's where your groups, if for training or even with the Sheriff's Department, they called us. We can do what we can. We'll do anything we can. We're a nonprofit organization. We will do it, and we're not going to charge the county for it because we have wonderful, wonderful people who have donated. We have a lady that remains anonymous that when she goes and buys her grain, she buys 5 bags for the rescue. These horses are eating 100 pounds of grain a day right now. Yeah, it's not cheap. And we can't do it unless we get donations, and it has been overwhelming. And so this has been a blessing in disguise.
And would you please give your address right now where people can make a donation?
If they go to www.horsenorthrescue.org, we have a PayPal on there. You can also find us on Facebook. And we have a fundraiser we're doing right now, too. And that picture is of the mayor, and I wish I would have brought some new pictures. But they're on the Facebook. Go ahead, Little Bit, and Oops, and Elmer, and they all have homes. People want these horses. And it's just, and we have other horses, and this isn't the first time. It's not going to be the last. We've gotten abandoned horses, people whose houses have been foreclosed on. They just, what are you going to do? People can't feed them, they turn them loose, you know? At least they can graze.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, our board wants to offer our services. We can be there. We have several board members. We all have jobs outside of this, you know, and this has become a full-time job for us. But we just can't let this kind of thing happen. And it's a lot of education, you know, and if an animal control, you know, when he was out there in October and a skinny horse, there's, hey, but these horses are skinny, you gotta question that. You have to, and I think that's uneducation. I mean, because you have to sand clear these horses because they eat pasture, they get sand in their guts, and then, you know, they can't digest and they get skinny, or their teeth have to be done. They never quit growing their teeth. So they have to have their teeth filed down. If they can't chew, they're gonna starve. You know, I just had to put down a 30-year-old gelding because half his teeth were gone. I couldn't keep him alive. But I would rather do that than have what happened in Fife Lake happen. That, you know, we have to be humane, but we have to be level-headed. So sometimes our hearts get into our pocketbooks. So unfortunately, that gets me in trouble.
We've all been there.
Thank you for
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for what you
But I
did.
just want to publicly let you know that Horse North Rescue is available, and we want to do clinics. We will be happy to teach your officers, anybody, how to score a horse, what to look for, anything. We have horses that we can show you now that are, you know, pretty bad shape, and if they're in pain, you know, there's so many different things going on. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, we have some folks who want to give a presentation on the spirit of Traverse City.
Yes, Mr.
you.
Chairman, we have Ron Bancroft and Warren Hertner here tonight.
Thank you for your patience, folks. Thank you. No, we're going to go this long, but
You had a,
Introduce yourself.
okay, I'm Ron Bancroft, trustee of Buckley Old Indian Show, Interlochen, Michigan. This one.
I'm Warren Hertner, also of Interlochen, Michigan, and I'm on the chairman of one of the shuttle crews out there at Old Indian.
I guess,
What I did, Ron, excuse me,
okay,
is I made copies of your proposal that you guys had given me, and I gave one to each of the commissioners tonight, so.
we're interested in the train and being able to have it out there. At the present time, we got to have 2 meetings in order to, and we haven't had our spring meeting yet, so we're in the process of the 13th of April be our first meeting, and then we can vote on it for the May, but I'm very confident that we'll be interested in that, so.
I might add to what Ron has said here that I drafted the actual proposal that you have in front of you tonight. Our intent with that proposal was to describe basically what was asked for in the city's original bid package. And I tried to address any and all of the issues that were there. And what Ron and myself proposed to do here, because the club has not had opportunity to have its annual meeting or general meeting of April. We need to come to you before this and let you know what our intent was. And we are not acting, even though we are members of that club, we're acting as individuals, okay? That we would like to see this opportunity presented to the club and think this is possibly only one of the avenues to do this. I think I spelled out and addressed most all issues here that were asked for within this document, that being the one of how to make your bid proposal. So I guess probably where we're at, Ron and I are looking, is there anything that we need to clarify from what we put in our proposal?
Well, I guess the key point about it is this isn't our decision. This train belongs to the city of Traverse City. That decision will be made by the city commission, not by the county board of commissioners.
But we appreciate the input, though.
No, we have a verbal agreement. The city has said verbally they would give the county the train. And here you have a nonprofit organization that already owns a steam train, willing to take that. They're gonna supply all the labor, remove it out of the city in a timely fashion, and put it out at the old engine showgrounds. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't provide that opportunity, because, for example, if they go to the city with their proposal and the city says, well, you know, Mackinac Center is willing to give us some money, the train could end up in Mackinac City.
Larry, if I think the city was willing to give us the train, and even that's not official, okay?
No, I said verbal.
But I think they're willing to give us the train in terms of us installing it in a county park, especially one, you know, close to Traverse City. However, having said that, my feeling would be once your board meets and, you know, decides that, you know, you can do this, I would certainly entertain us, you know, drafting a resolution of support to keep the train, you know, in or very close to Grand Traverse County. Is this actually in or outside the county? It's very close, right?
Yes, it's close.
So
We can all go visit it.
I think that's the best we can do, but I think we'd probably be willing to do that.
Mr. Chairman?
It's still going to be up to the city, yes.
The problem is, the city has a deadline of April 5th. Their first meeting is April 13th, then they have a 30-day period, so it's May. In the meantime, the city can get rid of the train on April 5th, and it's gone forever.
Have you talked to anybody at the city yet?
I have talked to Mr. Vaughn, okay, and I've also talked to Ms. Dalton,
Okay.
which seem to be the people to address in the specifications. Related to them, who I was, and interest in various things. And both had told me and conveyed to me that their interest was to see it stay in a local environment, okay? I do have to admit, I did not take the time to explain, as I have to others, that our meetings didn't coincide with what they had. All right, but I have also put together a proposal that if the county was not able to help us, we would want to also go to the city. But again, explaining that we are operating, myself and Ron, as members of this club and wanting to see it future itself and continue to have basically a very historical thing retained within the area and available to everyone, acting as individuals to the benefit and donation, which I put right in our proposal.
Right.
Our idea is to donate this by us to that, because actually we have to remove it as individuals if our proposals are offered.
Right.
Or accepted, rather.
Well, I would be happy to, you know, to go with you or to talk to Ben Byfoss as the city manager about this for you if you'd like.
We take any help we can get.
I honestly believe the April 5th deadline is a little artificial, and but it's only the 14th of March, so I'll, you know, write my phone number down if you would. It's 947-5515.
Okay.
And I'll see if I can find out anything more from the city manager on, you know, what they might be willing to do. Certainly your offer to, you know, remove the train and the tracks and so forth now, you know, will save them some money and would be in your favor, so. I don't know.
And I don't believe any of us, I think all of us would support the concept of retaining the the train here in northwestern Michigan, without question. You know, whether it's a half a mile into Wexford County or whether it's in Grand Traverse County, it's, you know, that's not a cement block wall for me. But at the same time, you know, you need to understand that this decision has to be made by the city commission. It is not our decision to make.
Okay.
And we will all, you know.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just comment. First of all, I'd like to commend Commissioner Fleece for the innovation. I'm a working and active member of the Buckley Old Engine and Thresher Club, and
I saw his card tonight. Showed me.
I was excited when you guys were coming. That is such an active group, you know, of volunteers that just dig in, and this is a perfect project that would be no sweat off their back at all compared to some of the huge projects we've tackled. The snow engine big as this room, that we got volunteers to go down to the southern United States and pick up and bring back, you know. But this is a great project. It'll be great for the community. It'll keep it local, and I really appreciate it.
Well, I believe, Commissioner Anschel, you understand what we're trying to do.
Absolutely.
And I think you probably know of both of us and our participation in the club and the various things. That was, you know, and Larry did address with us, you know, getting around and getting here tonight. And that's why we're here.
Okay, well, let's pursue it and see where we go.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
When I first got the information from Commissioner Fleece, it only took me a moment to figure out what a perfect fit and how it would complement what you've got going on over there. Because it is a strong family environment that you have over there. And people bring their campers there and spend, you know, weekends there and enjoy the whole experience. And what a compliment that train would be to be over there. So I want to thank you personally as one of the commissioners for, you know, taking the initiative to come in and let us know your interest in what, you know, I'm sure every commissioner sitting here will do its best to convince the city to move this along your way and get this thing done as quick as possible.
All right. If we have a problem, the problem of it is we have too many people drooling.
Yeah, there you go.
That we have discussed this with, and we do have a person right now that has stepped to the window that wants to be the chairman of this particular project, is offered any and all services. I'm going to lose him from my committee, but
Well, another thing we'd like to do is retain the spirit of Traverse City, you know, that right along with it.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Well, again, obviously, all these decisions have to be made by the city, but
okay.
many of us have, you know, connections with the city, and I think I can say that we'll probably all provide whatever support we can, so.
I'm guessing 9 of us will talk to them within the next week.
I'm guessing that you're right.
Commissioner Gilman's father is a city commissioner, so there's 1/7 of the way there already.
He'd be happy to find it a nice home somewhere.
And we are prepared to also make our proposal at the city on the 5th of April. You know,
Yeah, we need to send it in there too. I mean, we
so
in contact.
Well, I would get with Commissioner Richardson because he and Commissioner Maxbauer are city residents, and they know the way around the city, and I'm sure that, you know, you can present your proposal probably before then.
Okay.
trust me, we will accept any and all help because we think this will be a major
Yeah, it is.
compliment to what we already have.
It's a perfect fit.
Yes.
It really is.
Yeah, and we have the wisdom, we have the knowledge and the expertise to reassemble this unit, make it operational. I was excited once I read this specification because we're not just looking at the track on the ground, they got a whole bunch more. And switches,
wonderful.
all kinds of things, so.
How many acres do you guys have out there?
Currently, we have 60. We just bought another 60 that we have under land contract. So it will be double the show size that it is. All the pine trees to
the west.
To the west have been now purchased under a land contract agreement. It's over a 5-year situation. We're looking forward to the development of that. It's as we see the spirit of Traverse City right now. Probably it would be a static display because we have so much involved right
We got a
now.
snow engine we're trying
Okay.
to put together too.
Yeah.
So,
And so this is just another project that we're kind of throwing in there, but, you know, it'd be just beautiful to be putting that up there, and that's one of our future projects.
As a side note, my dad and two uncles are also members of the club, but I have another uncle that used to work on the train. He was a city employee, so we've got some experience available.
All right.
Used to work on the train? Ooh.
Yeah, you have to machine every part, you know, it's all.
Oh, yeah.
yep.
You make it all.
Okay.
We thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your patience also, seeing as how it's 10:30 in the evening.
Oh, we learned a lot.
You're always welcome to come back.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have under new business, let's see, Larry, did you bring this up? The
Yeah, I-
early opening of the brush cleanup site?
Yeah, I just want to let you know, I've been getting a number of calls, and when I'm going, doing my township reports, they've made it pretty clear that, you know, given the devastation of the storm that occurred here for,
12 days ago.
12 days ago, thank you. There, you know, with trees down, limbs down, there's a lot of cleanup to do, and they were wondering if the county, I believe, you're going to have to help me with this, there's a brush drop-off site or something like that?
Right on Keystone.
It's
They were
on
wondering-
Keystone.
They were
County
wondering
owns
if that
Why
could
don't
be.
you come up, because we just had a discussion the other day about hiring staffing for that facility
they were-
for the summer,
Well,
so it.
They were wondering
Bob
if that could be-
attended Garfield last night, and Garfield has stepped up to
Stepped
the
up.
plate, and they are, well, go ahead, Bob.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me give you a
Yeah,
little
they were asking
update
if
of
it could
what's
be op-
happening.
if it can be opened up earlier.
Yeah, what's happening right now in the county. The Commission on Aging is now picking up, I think they got 2 crews out, and they're picking up some of their senior clients. They're picking up brush there, and it's coming into the facility. I think you read in the paper that Traverse City will be picking up brush at the curb the first week of April. We did meet with Garfield Township last night, and they are going to implement a program. I think they will be doing some chipping at the curb, but they'll also be bringing a brush to the facility, and will be paying for the cost for their residents for that brush.
It's a voucher system.
yes.
They were talking.
With the voucher system. And that's, will start April 9th. Now, we are going to be open this weekend. We have received, like Larry has received, a lot of calls. We are open this weekend. We're not sure how it's going to go. We've had quite a few calls. I've had a lot of calls from Leelanau County, Benzie County, and I flat told them they can't bring their brush over here. Until we get cleaned up within Grand Traverse County, I'm not allowing any out-of-county brush to come into the facility. With that said, I think it's probably going to take at least a month, maybe longer, to get everything cleaned up, throughout the county. Any calls that are coming into our office, I am telling them that we are open this Saturday.
Okay.
We'll be open next Saturday, and the Saturday after that. The site opens April 7th. I'd like to see if maybe we could start a week early. The site just did dry up.
Okay.
So it's now we can use it. Before, we'd probably spent more money on tow trucks getting everybody out of there than probably what they would have dropped off in brush. But most of the residents I've talked to are understanding. They know it's a big task, and we are working with them to get as many in as possible the next few weekends. So I think that's helped a lot, especially with the city doing their collection later, and the Garfield helping out as well. That has helped us a lot at the brush site. So we'll see how this weekend goes. I'll be working at the site this weekend, and my temporary person won't come on for probably another week or two. We're working on getting him in here. Usually we start the first week in
You
April.
have hours, Bob?
What's that?
Hours open?
We will be open 9 to 3 this Saturday, and 9 to 3 the next Saturday, and so forth. When we open for the regular season, we're open Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So if any way possible, I would like to open a week early. We will be doing some grinding next week. American Waste is going to come in and grind the material we got out there, so we've been lucky to have some good weather
we've got a
this
pile
last
out
couple
there, though.
days. We got a pretty good pile out there. This is the third storm we've had since 2010. We had one late in 2010, and we had one at the start of 2011. Nothing compared to this past one, so.
One of the questions that I've been getting, Bob, is if I could tell them what it costs to get rid of brush at the drop-off site. And
Yeah, it's $5 a cubic yard.
$5
to drop off, and that's pretty reasonable. I think to have a chipping crew come out, it's about $150 an hour to have it shipped at the curb for residents. So, and there are a lot of contractors out right now actually doing some chipping in the township that people have requested their help. So, I'm pretty confident we can get everything cleaned up, and it's going to take a while, but I think we'll be able to get it done.
Will you take chipped brush to it, $5 a yard? Is that unchipped?
The contract this year is $5.50 a yard. I know that sounds like we're not charged enough to cover the cost of shipping, but we also receive revenue on the grass side and the leaf side, which, we don't have to chip that, so it kind of balances out the
So
cost.
if it's chips, it's $5.50 a yard?
Yeah.
If they bring you chips?
Well, for American Waste to chip the material we have, for people to bring it in, it's $5, $5 a cubic yard.
$5 a cubic yard?
Just straight up. Yeah, straight up, yeah.
Because I hear a lot of guys calling and asking for places to dump chips right now.
Well, we're not taking any chips. Let me put that.
That was the question.
Yeah, well, it's $5 for brush. The chip material, I mean, there's some outlets they can use to take care of that stuff.
Have you contacted any radio stations or anything to let them know?
We haven't yet. We posted it on our website. We posted it, it's on our hotline. My biggest concern was if I had done a major press release, I would have probably got pretty slammed.
More than you could unload on
More than I
Saturday?
could probably ever, and I was also concerned about out-of-county people showing up as well with truckloads of material. But with that said, anybody that is calling the office, first thing I'm asking, are you a county resident? The next thing I'm asking her, what township are you from? If you're from the city, I'm asking them, if they could wait, for their April pickup. Garfield, I'm letting them know there's something coming down the pipe for you. East Bay, Green Lake, any five, I'm telling them, come on in Saturday and we'll
We know that the paper has definitely heard them, and they'll put the announcement for Saturdays open on Sunday's paper.
Well, it is interesting. I was at Long Lake Township last night, and the road commission was reporting that one of the things that they need to do is get brush crews out and start picking up what the power companies drop. But one of the issues that they have is that all of the residents are dragging all of their brush out to the roadway too. So, they're figuring they're gonna have a lot of problems also, because not only do they have a lot of brush yet that's still hanging from the power lines and hanging in the trees, but they're getting a lot of residential brush that's gonna be brought out into the roadway, assuming that the road commission's gonna take care of it. The city has a funding mechanism to do that, the road commission does not.
They saved $200,000 this year in snow plowing. Let's get to work.
I was hoping to patch a few potholes with that $200,000, right?
That's all they need is another storm, and they'll just push the brush back in their yard.
Bob, is there any concern about Dutch elm disease and how we transport any of our brush in that kind of a vein?
Not that I know of. I'm not sure I know how to answer that.
Trees that took the huge hit of the
Nowadays,
white
Dutch
pine.
elm isn't the problem.
I think most of it's pine.
It's the ash borer.
But I just didn't know if there was any concerns in that. And the other thing is why don't you use your resources to find out where people can take their chips? Whether some of our parkland can take it, some places, maybe the Conservation District, call them. I'm not saying they will. I'm saying, would you please check that out?
I will check that out.
So people can have a resource of where they might be able to take chips.
City gives me some.
I know the city has two big,
For my
huge
yard.
piles of chips out there that, that they try to get rid of recently. And I'm sure we have probably 5,000 cubic yards of material out there that's probably in the county. Normally we chip $3,000, $3,500 a year.
So I just,
Yeah.
with our parkland and our trails, Rotary's got some property out there at East Creek Reserve, and I don't know if they can use wood chips, but using through the Conservation District, let's find out if any of it's available.
We'll have plenty.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, it's time for second public comment.
Car would be an antique.
General public comment? All right, seeing none. Commissioner committee reports?
There you go.
Okay, notices and/or announcements?
Yeah.
Any need for a closed session?
Nope. Motion to adjourn.
Yes, we're done.
Wait a minute.
You haven't had dinner?
No, no.
That's not good, Larry.
Earlier.
That's all right.